Sometimes people can be so talentless that they become pitiful. They hesitate to take a step forward and face fear and bad luck. Kang-san was that kind of person. In the newspapers, the news of a global emergency related to a phenomenon was being broadcast. A large number of civilians were being eliminated by monsters, one after another. The cases were only increasing: incidents, injuries, and disappearances. In one of the cases, the victims were parents who were on their way to pick up their child from school. After losing his parents in an instant, Kang-san also lost his home to distant relatives, people whose names he didn't even know. He grew up as an orphan. Because of this, he needed to develop a tenacity that was not appropriate for his tender age. Driven by the desire to succeed, he studied and worked hard, practically without sleep. Kang-san was talented and intelligent, but there was one problem. His life had almost no luck at all. Just when he was about to take his exams, an appendicitis attack struck him, causing him to fail. On the day of the next exam, the bus he was on overturned, making him late. One ridiculous morning, he tried to leave home but found a fallen bicycle on the stairs, blocking his door and preventing him from going to school. After that, similar incidents continued to happen repeatedly. He ended up becoming a failed student. He was labeled a failure. Eventually, Kang-san bet his life on a miracle. Faced with difficulties in finding a job, he decided to enroll in a hunter academy. He hoped for an awakening. The awakening was the starting point to become a hunter. Those chosen by the gods demonstrated an innate talent from birth. However, if they awakened before the age of 20, they could still become hunters. For that day, Kang-san never neglected his efforts. But in the end, Kang-san was classified as rank F. The agent who classified him pointed out that he had awakened without any special ability. If those with innate talent were among the top 1%, he could very well classify Kang-san in the bottom 1%. Even the administrative team, which had seen many hunters, found the situation amusing. Kang-san's mental state completely collapsed. Time passed quickly until he turned 25. Faced with a wolf wielding a sword, a man blocked it with a shield, but the damage reverberated to his bones. As the man screamed, Kang-san jumped to grab the troll. The palms of his hands forced their way, pushing the troll's hands back. Gritting his teeth, he advanced, forcing the troll to retreat with each step. With all his strength, he grabbed the monster's fist. The creature tried to bite him, but with a high knee strike, Kang-san closed its mouth. The strong blow sent the troll back. Irritated, Kang-san shouted for his companion to use his magic faster. The man, releasing a fire spell, gritted his teeth and cursed Kang-san. "Just hold on a little longer, Meat Shield. Can't you see I'm trying?" Kang-san gritted his teeth, cursing. He couldn't believe that the magician was actually trying to form a team. He blamed himself for not suspecting this before agreeing to join. One of the tanks was already incapacitated. While he, the other tank, bought time, the magician, who should have been casting a spell, failed in his duty. The wolf-faced monster wasn't overwhelmingly strong, but without magical power, facing two of them at the same time was too much for a rank F Meat Shield. Kang-san was already preparing for the worst when the situation finally improved. The magician finished casting his fire magic. Creating a whirlwind of flames, he shouted for the tanks to get out of the way. "I'll take them all out." Kang-san and the other tank felt relief, and the monsters, in turn, sensed the danger. The magician created a fire bow and arrow, prepared the attack, and shot the arrow at the enemies. It landed in front of the monsters, but instead of defeating them, it simply extinguished, releasing only a light smoke. The protagonist put his hands on his head, incredulous. He looked back, furious. "Hey, you idiot! Why are you aiming your magic at the ground? Are you crazy?" Before the protagonist realized it, a sword fell to the ground. One of the beasts attacked the other tank. The man was thrown to the ground while the monster climbed on top of him. He gritted his teeth, pleading for help. Quickly, the protagonist ran to rescue him, but his path was blocked by the second monster. He was about to advance when he felt a distortion in space. Looking back, he saw the magician creating a portal. He was leaving without saying anything. Not caring about the others, the magician sighed, apologizing. "I was the one who suggested this hunt, so I feel bad for leaving. But it's still better that at least one of us survives, right? Honestly, I know you don't want to perish at the hands of these dogs, but I'm sorry, Meat Shield." Upon hearing those words, the protagonist was outraged. People constantly called him Meat Shield. Even though the official term was Tank, he didn't understand why they kept using that nickname. They didn't have the necessary skills to defeat monsters, so they needed bait. They needed the lowest class of society, the Meat Shields. No one was surprised if these people didn't survive the hunts. After all, that was their role. The protagonist saw the other tank suffer at the hands of the monster, but even if he ran, there was nothing he could do. If Kang-san risked his life to save another Meat Shield, his end would be the most lamentable, reaching the peak of misfortune. That was what he wanted to avoid. So he ran to cross the portal with the magician. However, as he passed through it, he emerged in another place, a strange space, where a voice spoke. "You have been chosen by Azmun, the Lady of Trials and Difficulties." The protagonist was confused until he looked up and saw a person sitting on a gigantic rock. From above, the woman was watching him. Not understanding, he walked toward her, asking what had happened to the portal. But the woman ignored his question. She took a deep breath and began to shout, "From now on, you must endure this trial to erase the karma of your past life." Covering his ears to lessen the noise, the protagonist looked up, confused by the talk of past lives. Suddenly, the woman jumped down beside him, breaking the ground where she landed. He tried to protect himself from the debris, keeping one eye open to watch her. It was then that he felt a hand on his back. It was the claw of one of those wolf monsters. Smiling, the woman completed her speech. "So, make a wise choice." The other tank was trying with all his strength to stop the advance of that monster. At the same time, he wondered where he had gone wrong. He was about to turn 30. Kim Chun-shik had grown up in difficult circumstances, similar to those seen in decadent films. His father was an alcoholic, and his mother rejected him to the point of running away, leaving him behind. Even an accident caused his father to abandon him in this world, leaving only his grandmother to help him. Kim Chun-shik was still a typical person who could be found before the changes in this world, and so he grew old alongside his grandmother. But at some point, Kim Chun-shik's life changed. His grandmother collapsed due to a rare illness, and the treatment was far too expensive for him to cover. To take care of her, Kim Chun-shik had no choice but to obtain a large amount of money. He needed to take risks to get it. Thus, he started working as a hunter. At 20, he discovered through an aptitude test that he had no talents. But the profession of hunter was full of surprises. Needing to do everything he could for his family, he began to work as a hunter. And today, he ended up making the most foolish decision possible, tempted by money. The guy who wanted to form a team seemed incompetent at first glance, but upon hearing that he would pay double, he was tempted. It was probably in vain to expect any help against that monster. Kim Chun-shik also wanted to flee. He wanted to be by his grandmother's side, who had always helped him. It was at that moment, when he thought he was finished, that the monster, gnashing its teeth, began to tremble. The monster's hand released Kim Chun-shik's body. Due to the attack he suffered, he lost all his strength, falling to the ground beside the hunter. Kim Chun-shik sighed heavily, not believing what had happened. Some time ago, looking down, Kang-san saw the troll's claw stained with red. Behind the protagonist, the monster had struck him. Smiling, the woman leaned down to touch him. "You, in your past life, were a very terrible being." She wasn't touching Kang-san himself, but rather the claw he could see when he lowered his head. With a light touch making the monster's arm disappear, she stated that this was why his life was so difficult. In an instant, the monster was erased before the protagonist's eyes. He also looked down, realizing that his stomach was completely healed. Frowning, he questioned the woman about what she had said regarding his past life. She repeated her words, revealing that he was a blood entity. The protagonist was confused, not understanding what she was saying, nor what kind of being that was. She left him free to believe or not in her words, but warned that if he didn't resolve his karma, he would never truly be happy. She gave him an option, to resolve this karma through the trial, gradually solving his problem and receiving appropriate rewards depending on the trial he faced. Accept the trials. If you resolve the karma of your past life through them, you can live the life you have always desired. Having caught Kang-san's attention, the woman turned her head so he could look back. "The first difficulty and trial has been imposed on you. Accompany the rank F hunter, Kim Chun-shik, and safely escape from the other world." The protagonist was surprised, telling the woman that 2 weaklings couldn't handle a monster like that. However, to convince him, the woman created a notification window to show him his reward. Kim Chun-shik was giving his all to fend off the monster's attack. It was then that the protagonist stepped out of the portal, running toward him. However, 2 monsters blocked his path. Holding clubs, they gritted their teeth, charging toward Kang-san. But the protagonist removed the lid from a vial, unleashing the power of sharpening magic. The sword he held was enhanced, increasing its sharpness thanks to the magic. Confidently, he ran toward the monsters. The heavy attack from the monster came down, but the protagonist used his sword to block it. He bent his legs to gain momentum and in an instant slipped past the monster's attacks, moving forward after passing them. In the midst of his run, another club came toward him. However, throwing himself to the ground, he managed to dodge, passing under the club. Sliding beneath the monster, Kang-san also raised his sword, striking it from below as he passed. The monster howled from the attack, but Kang-san didn't stop. Jumping, he hit it head-on. Once again, the howl of a wolf echoed throughout the square. The protagonist pleaded for his attack to defeat the monster. He was using all his strength for it, but the monster raised its claws, attacking Kang-san. The protagonist left the monster behind, causing it to fall to the ground after defeating it. Having defeated the first one, he sighed heavily. However, before he could rest, another troll tried to bite him. The protagonist realized his mistake. The sword he had used was with the monster he had managed to defeat. Trials and difficulties were always set at a level that would be risky. The protagonist received the advice to keep this in mind. He realized he wouldn't be able to recover that sword. However, he still had a small knife. Summoning his courage, he jumped to confront the remaining monster. The monster was quick and managed to block his attack. However, Kang-san was persistent, managing to hit it, striking the troll on the shoulder. The protagonist gritted his teeth, pulling his attack downward. Sighing heavily, he fell over the second defeated monster. He let his weapon drop to the ground. Immediately, he left it behind, running in another direction. He ran toward the first monster. He picked up the sword and raised it. Looking in one direction, he aimed carefully. He threw the sword with all his strength, launching it in the direction he was facing. Thus, Kim Chun-shik saw the monster above him being defeated. Kang-san had succeeded, much to the group's delight, even if it cost him all his energy. Exhausted, he lay down on the square's ground, receiving the notification that he had passed the first trial and difficulty, earning the promised reward. The ability increases stamina regeneration by 10%. The skill Will of the Guardians increases defense and life regeneration by 1% for each enemy nearby. If health drops below 10%, it will be restored, and defense will be doubled. When the divine power reaches 5 stars, the Will of the Guardians will evolve. Most of the skills that hunters possessed, like sword strengthening, were at best 1 star. Additionally, only hunters ranked D or higher could use 2-star skills or above. 3 stars or more depended not only on skill, but also on luck. The protagonist was so incredulous about his rewards that he jumped, shouted, and rolled on the ground all at once. Incredible! This is the kind of reward worth the risk. This is a work of art. It was then that Kang-san remembered something, the words of that woman. When saying goodbye, she had mentioned that he hadn't completed the entire trial yet. It dawned on him. His trial was to rescue Kim Chun-shik and safely exit that world. Both he and Kim Chun-shik were still there. He needed to get out. Regaining focus, the protagonist ran to Kim Chun-shik, apologizing. He shook him a few times, checking if he was alive, trying to wake him up. The protagonist pressed against Kim Chun-shik, who was in a state needing a hospital. As he wondered what to do, Kang-san had an epiphany. He looked at his own hands, feeling a power and understanding why he had received it. It seemed that Kim Chun-shik was indeed a lucky guy. The protagonist placed both hands on Kim Chun-shik, releasing the Aura of Regeneration ability. Quickly, Kim Chun-shik's wounds disappeared, healed by the magic. His expression also calmed. The protagonist watched closely, realizing he had succeeded. Later, someone was visiting the Hunter Management Department. Walking through the hallways, a wizard in a suit wondered why he had been called for something so irritating. Entering the room, he asked what had happened. He just wanted to resolve the matter and leave, but he was confused. Before him, several men in black stood up upon seeing him. He spotted one of the flesh shields in the back as the men walked toward him. "You are Moon Sung-min, right? We would like to ask you some questions about a raid from a few days ago." His eyes met Kang-san's and he understood exactly what had happened, becoming shocked. The men in black approached him, instructing him to sit down. However, scared, he looked to the side. His hand gripped the door and he quickly tried to escape, being pursued by the men in black. Moon Sung-min dashed into the hallway, trying to flee. But in an instant, one of the guards had already knocked him to the ground. "Mr. Moon Sung-min, during a rank F raid, you abandoned your companions and fled. As you should know, deliberately putting your companions in such a situation is considered serious in this world." Moon Sung-min was furious, asking if there was any evidence that he had abandoned them, claiming he had retreated because there was no chance of victory. The guard mocked his words and immediately opened a window where a video was being transmitted. In the video, there was Moon Sung-min. She noted that for 2 rank F tanks along with a wizard dealing with 4 trolls shouldn't have been difficult. But the video showed the wizard fleeing immediately after his magic failed. "Even if you go to trial, this evidence should be enough to demonstrate your intention, dear Moon Sung-min." Moon Sung-min couldn't believe he had been recorded. He never imagined there were people like that. Leaving the room, the protagonist heard Moon Sung-min's screams as he was taken away. The guard who stayed behind thanked Kang-san for the video, which had made things easier. Despite knowing he had gone through a tough situation, she praised his preparation. "In this world, we receive numerous complaints, but since there's no evidence, most get away with it." The protagonist acknowledged her words, stating that he always recorded everything in case unexpected things happened. For that, he had even spent quite a bit on that camera. If someone in this world decided to premeditate something against another person, there was no way to stop it. That's why people put their efforts into understanding their opponents beforehand, preparing for the worst. As soon as the fire arrow failed, Moon Sung-min completely lost his composure. Fearing the monsters, he chose to flee through the portal and survive alone. He felt no guilt. From the start, he treated his companions as pawns. To him, everything was valid as long as he survived. Moreover, in this world, no one cared about flesh shields like Kang-san. The woman who analyzed the video also evaluated Kang-san's physical skill level and recommended that he join the army. She didn't understand why he was working as a mere rank F tank. She instructed him to enlist, saying that he could obtain resources to fight against monsters and live a better lifestyle. Even with her words, Kang-san pointed out that such weapons didn't work against monsters with tough hides, revealing he had been through risky situations. He countered her precisely to highlight that, in this dangerous world, not being prepared for unexpected events could be fatal. He displayed a confident look. That's why I want to become stronger as a hunter. After saying goodbye, the protagonist stretched. Remembering the damned wizard, he wished he wouldn't last more than 10 years. As the protagonist walked, someone with a bandage on their mouth noticed his presence. The man was extremely surprised to see him. You are Mr. Kang-san. With someone calling his name so suddenly, the protagonist was startled and slightly scared. Suddenly, that person who had appeared knelt before him. Kneeling, Kim Chun-shik almost shed tears as he thanked, "I greet my benefactor." A few days earlier, in a large hospital where common hunters were usually taken, everything seemed peaceful. It was then that Kim Chun-shik woke up. Realizing he was in a quiet place, it took him a while to understand the situation. But what he knew was that he was still alive. Like a nightmare, memories of a troll wolf came to mind. He remembered how that monster had suddenly fallen. Even without being able to move his body, he managed to look to the side while sighing heavily. Further ahead was a young man, a bit younger than him, extremely tired. However, on that young man's face was a strong determination. Kim Chun-shik connected all the dots, realizing who had saved him. He remembered that the wizard had fled and that there were no more chances of surviving on his own. However, he had been saved. Still, Kim Chun-shik was confused. He didn't understand why that young man had saved him. It was in the midst of this confusion that someone entered his hospital room, shouting his name. As he sat up in bed, he saw his grandmother enter the room. In a wheelchair, a nurse was helping her reconnect with her grandson. That grandmother, who had already suffered so much, stretched out her arms with sadness and concern. "What were you thinking doing something so dangerous? Do you want to go to the afterlife with this old woman?" "Oh, my grandson. I should go alone since I'm old." As if my grandson understood how much I'm struggling. With tears of joy at seeing his grandmother again, Kim Chun-shik knelt before her wheelchair. "Don't be angry, Grandma. Your blood pressure might go up. I'm fine, see?" However, his grandmother continued to scold him, showing how his face was still full of wounds. In tears, Kim Chun-shik explained how worried he was about her life. He didn't want to live in a world where she didn't exist. Seeing how the boy treated her, the old woman couldn't help but be moved. "What are you saying? I did all this so we could live for a long time." She had found her grandson when he was still just a child. Knowing what had happened to his parents, she rushed to see him. She wished they could live together for a long, long time, as grandmother and grandson. With tears streaming from her wrinkled eyes, the grandmother kissed Kim Chun-shik's head, pleading for him to stay alive. As she hugged him, Kim Chun-shik thanked her, feeling lucky to have survived, and for having had a companion, a flesh shield, who saved him and made it possible for him to return to his only family. Now, in the middle of a corridor where people were coming and going, Kim Chun-shik drew attention by pressing his forehead to the ground in a deep gesture of gratitude to his benefactor. The protagonist was quite embarrassed, but Kim Chun-shik kept thanking him. Quickly, the protagonist explained that he hadn't done it willingly, but that, in a world like that, companions needed to help each other. "If I ignore my companions and run away, they certainly won't be okay. Just that guilt would have been unbearable for me." Kim Chun-shik could hardly believe that the man who saved him had such a good personality. His tears washed down his face like a waterfall. The protagonist also crouched down to be at the same level as Kim Chun-shik and continued, "To be honest, I also faced many problems. I hesitated at that moment. This isn't a great cause, as you think." He was beginning to get annoyed, because Kim Chun-shik was looking at him with bright eyes, as if he had seen a deity. Kang-san knew he couldn't be completely honest and say he had received a mission, but he also had no other way to escape the topic. In the end, he thought it would be fine. They probably wouldn't see each other again. Saying goodbye, the protagonist went on his way. Kim Chun-shik wanted to repay the favor, but scratching his head, the protagonist stated that it was all right. However, at that exact moment, the second trial was delivered to the protagonist. He gritted his teeth, surprised to receive a new mission so suddenly. He began to read the warning window. Kim Chun-shik's grandmother is suffering from a rare disease. She cannot undergo surgery due to lack of money. Donate 150 million won, $100,000, to Kim Chun-shik and his grandmother. Faced with such a mission, the protagonist gritted his teeth furiously. And seeing Kim Chun-shik's confused and desperate expression, he wondered what he should do. The protagonist received the mission to donate money to the grandson and his grandmother in order to receive as a reward agility points, divinity, and a star skill. Looking at his bank account, he realized he would need to donate 90% of his money to fulfill the mission. He felt very frustrated, indecisive about what to do. Since his youth, Kang-san had worked diligently to save his money. 168 million won was all his fortune. There was much reluctance, but he remembered the words of that woman. If you can erase the karma of your past, you can live the life you desire. However, she had offered him a contract as a lawyer. If he did not accept a mission, not only would he miss out on the reward, but he would also lose all previous rewards. Furthermore, all the weight of the karma would fall upon him, bringing unimaginable punishment. The protagonist gritted his teeth, regretting it. The amount he needed to deliver was enormous, but from the moment he accepted the position of apostle, he had no more choice. He would receive 6 stat points along with a star skill. This time, there was no mention of extra rewards, so everything was clearly listed. The most important thing was that if Kang-san failed this trial, he would not have a third chance. Hunters always fought to gain more strength, which guaranteed them enormous wealth. If Kang-san could further develop his skills as a hunter, he would easily be able to recover that 150 million. As a Class F, he couldn't access the market, so acquiring another skill now wouldn't be a bad idea. The protagonist, watching a broadcast on a large screen about powerful hunters, made his decision. He would obtain that reward. With the phone in hand, he searched for a contact number and called the bank. With that, the protagonist managed to pass the second trial, receiving the promised rewards. On that same day, the promotion exam was taking place. A staff member, holding a tablet, called 10 applicants to follow him. A captain was already waiting, observing the approaching participants. With his hands behind his back, he began to explain how the basic aptitude test would take place. As soon as they entered the virtual reality training room, they would be assigned to control a character within the virtual space. The evaluator explained that the test aimed to assign missions based on each individual's position and disposition, with a scar over his eye that inspired fear. He did not accept any complaints about the assigned character. The various participants heard him say that the designated characters had appropriate skills for their respective ranks, so they would be able to complete the mission. Thus, if they failed, it did not mean the character was bad. It meant they were unqualified. Starting the test, he called applicant 38 Kang-san. Applying for the tank position, the protagonist entered the room. The mission had been assigned: prevent the advance of 4 beasts and protect his allies. The battle would last approximately 5 minutes. As requested, a sword and a shield would be provided, and the character's stats would be set at 30 points. As Kang-san equipped himself, they wished him good luck. Upon entering a tunnel, the protagonist could see the monsters ahead. The 4 quickly noticed his presence and stared at him with threatening looks. Kang-san had a trial to overcome there. As a reward, each of his stats would be increased by 2 points. He had gone through all sorts of difficulties to raise his stats to double digits, but now he could fight with 30 points in each. Under the watchful eyes of the evaluators, he began his test. He was equipped with a shield and a 1-star sword, and he possessed tank abilities. Against those troll wolves, it would be a good opportunity to test his new reward. The protagonist faced the monsters with a confident look. The first monster attacked him, displaying its sharp teeth, but with the shield, he managed to close the troll's mouth. However, other monsters, several times larger than him, also attacked him. He quickly retreated, and the claws of one of the trolls passed right in front of his eyes. The claws dug into the ground, missing their human target. Kang-san had already moved to the back of the monster. With a high kick, he struck it hard. The troll was launched into the air, falling onto one of its companions in a true bowling strike. The protagonist sensed danger out of the corner of his eye and quickly raised his shield to block an attack. With the character's stats in the 30s, his abilities were superior to Kang-san's, and his reaction speed was also higher. In other words, compared to before, Kang-san was much stronger. In the observation room, the instructor with the scar over his eye watched as a staff member checked something on the computer. She could analyze that, even though the hunter was just a Class F meat shield, he had excellent skills for dealing with adverse situations. Among all the applicants up to that moment, he was by far the best. The staff member watched closely the level of skill of Kang-san. The instructor, behind her, also observed. In the room below, the participant was handling the trolls perfectly. The monsters shook their heads, recovering. One of them was about to attack again, but it was startled to see its target disappear, leaving only the ghostly allies. Before they could react, Kang-san had already approached, wielding his sword. Watching the fight, the woman at the computer became nervous upon seeing one of the beasts running toward the allies. The purpose of the test was to evaluate how well the applicant would fulfill their function. It was crucial not to forget that the allies were further back. She did not believe that the candidate who had done so well up to that point hadn't noticed this. However, it was at that moment that the protagonist used the Guardian Shield ability. In an instant, the beast attacking the allies fell. She prepared for an attack, but the protagonist prevented the claws from advancing, using his sword to block them. Seeing how he utilized his skills, the duo in the observation room was surprised. Guardian Shield. This ability changed its effect depending on the position. When used by tanks, it could disperse the enemy's aggro. Asmun, the woman who had given him the trials, forced him to become a sacrifice and live in devotion. The tank position existed to protect allies on the front line. He was the first to be eliminated if something went wrong. Because of the high risk, the demand was also high. Those who had their tanking skills recognized could earn enough money to support a company. That's why many aspired to this position. However, due to the extreme risk, it was avoided by almost everyone. Kang-san faced the attack head-on. He took on extremely high risks, seeking a return that matched. For someone like him who had nothing to lose, this was the perfect position. Rather than risking his life for a few pieces of animal skin, Kang-san much preferred fighting against these beasts. Shortly after, the exam concluded. Still in a battle stance, the protagonist saw the monsters disappear. His gaze was sharp. Now he desired even more to rank up, as at his current level it would be difficult to participate in higher-level raids. To achieve this growth, Kang-san needed to rid himself of the stigma of being just a meat shield. When the protagonist exited the testing room, he encountered numerous people staring in awe. It was then that he looked back to where everyone was looking. There was his score, an S+, a perfect evaluation. In an exit area, the elevators opened so that the participants could leave. Various people walked together, all following the young man who was scratching his head. In a room, observing the numerous rank F results, a supervisor was furious. The disheveled man couldn't believe that those people couldn't even pass the fitness test, even though it was such an easy assessment. It seemed they didn't even know their own limits. His complaints were endless. What were they thinking when they applied for a rank promotion? The battlefield is no joke. Whenever he thought of the battlefield, the man was overcome by a dark memory. It was then that he awoke, surprised to notice a highlighted note on a sheet. Someone had been classified as rank S. The person's name was Kang-san, someone who consistently demonstrated the ideal qualities for a tank. The examiner had commented that Kang-san did not allow a single attack to pass during the full 5 minutes of the simulation. He participated in a scenario where he needed to protect imaginary allies, drawing the monster's attention to himself. In the test, he demonstrated exemplary performance. At that moment, the team leader received the news that it was time to proceed to the testing fields. In the fields, a huntress passed on the details of the next phase. We will divide them into teams of 5 and conduct the practical test in 2 groups. Once the test begins, you must go to the rank E zone. Just like in a real raid, you need to defeat all the monsters within the set time. As the woman explained the other requirements, the team leader joined the group to observe the candidates. He reminded everyone that the ability to form a raid team was essential for any hunter. Since the evaluation would begin as soon as the teams were formed, and to ensure a smooth procedure, the leaders of each team would be assigned randomly. The first leader drawn was a man named Min Hyung-mo. Next was Jo Han-byul. The two decided it by rock, paper, scissors, and with Min Hyung-mo's victory, he was able to choose his team members first. Min Hyung-mo analyzed the available people. He wanted to choose a tank right away. If the front line was solid, the raid would go smoothly, and the rest of the team would just need to do their part. Immediately, he chose a burly tank for the position. Then it was Jo Han-byul's turn. He remembered that there were only 2 candidates for the tank position and looked in the direction of what remained. Watching Kang-san, Jo Han-byul wondered if he was really a tank, as he seemed too skinny for the role. Still, believing that having someone who at least resembled a tank would be necessary, he sighed and chose Kang-san. The selections continued until the teams were complete. After the teams were formed, the grumpy leader approached the microphone. "Ah, now you are a team. Remember, in this practical test, no one will be there to protect you. A simple mistake could cost a life. Use these 30 minutes to discuss strategies wisely." Addressing the area where he could observe the participants, he was anxious for the 30 minutes to pass quickly. Min Hyung-mo's team was confident, convinced that they had a strong tank. Min Hyung-mo ensured that as long as they followed the assigned tasks and maintained standard tactics, they would be fine. To do this, they should start by sharing their specialties. On the other hand, Jo Han-byul's team was scattered and worried. Scratching the back of his neck, the protagonist asked if they weren't going to discuss a strategy. Jo Han-byul tried to ignore the worry. "Of course, we need a plan. So what if we have some uncertainties? Let's put our heads together." As everyone discussed, the evaluator watched them closely. His eyes were fixed on the rank S candidate, Kang-san. He discovered that the young man had received the worst possible evaluation in the post-birth assessment. Moreover, he had spent his last years as a rank F meat shield. He had solid fundamentals, but lacked natural talent. Despite demonstrating a great attitude, he seemed to lack the innate gift of a hunter. To the evaluator, this was a shame. The time for the test began, and the organizers instructed Team 1 to enter. Team 1 followed a path covered with low grass. With the tank in front, they lined up, advancing through the open field. Suddenly, the tank shouted, "Dodge!" Immediately, he positioned his shield in front of his body, blocking an attack from a humanoid monster. Min Hyungmo drew his sword, commanding everyone to form up. They quickly recognized the monsters attacking them, blue orcs wielding axes and clubs, known for their high aggression. The team's tank promptly used the iron body skill. The orc's attack struck his shield, but with the 5% bonus to his defense, he managed to withstand it. Faced with 3 orcs, Min Hyungmo ordered the priests to buff and heal the tank, and for everyone to attack as well. Immediately, the team members fulfilled their roles, while Min Hyungmo himself advanced to attack. He managed to hit an orc hard, causing it to become unsteady. Seizing the opportunity, he launched a second attack. However, this time, the sword was blocked by the orc's club. Without Min Hyungmo noticing, another orc tried to ambush him from behind. The orc ground its teeth, charging forward with a mace. The team's tank noticed the danger his teammate was in. Quickly, he used the Guardian Shield skill. With this, he drew the aggro of all the orcs. The first orc struck the tank's shield fiercely with its axe. However, the tank just smiled, seeing that his skill had worked. Still, the orc wielding the mace also charged to attack him. The second attack fell heavily on the shield, which, strengthened, withstood the impact. Min Hyungmo looked back and realized that the tank was facing a tough fight. However, he believed he would do well with the support of the buffs and healing from the priests. A huntress quickly ran to help Min Hyungmo. With her support, he was able to face the third orc. Everything was going according to plan. Then they heard a grinding of teeth. Min Hyungmo's attention was immediately drawn to that sound. The ground was being destroyed under the heavy steps approaching. A horde of armed orcs emerged, charging towards the group of hunters with full fury. Min Hyungmo grew worried upon seeing 7 or 8 more orcs. Realizing that the previous ones were just scouts, he quickly swung his sword to deal with the orc he was facing, and then retreated, ordering the team to do the same, seeking shelter behind the tank. The tank was maximizing his shield's strength, trying to hold back at least 2 of the orcs. His feet, planted on the ground, were already starting to be pushed back as he gritted his teeth. One of his teammates, concerned, urged the tank, Young-soo, to hold on. A mage also tried to instruct him not to be dragged back. Meanwhile, a drone hovered over the group, observing the situation. Behind the drone was the team leader. Watching everything closely, he picked up the microphone and transmitted a message. There's something that applicants often misunderstand. The ranks designated by the government don't exist solely for prestige or honor. A given rank means that a person's skills are considered reliable for that level. In other words, a rank E hunter has the necessary capabilities to complete a rank E raid. The tank is holding the front line now, but let's be clear. If a tank is capable of handling so many orcs alone, he wouldn't be participating in the rank E exam. He would be in the next one. To pass the practical test, not just one, but all team members need to be at the required level. Otherwise, forget about leaving this test alive. Min Hyungmo gritted his teeth, furious. The instructor was absolutely right. If the tank fell, the mission would be lost. Immediately, he ordered the ranged attackers to continue supporting the tank. He wanted the front line to hold off the orcs while the others broke their defenses to attack them precisely. With his skilled swordsmanship, Min Hyungmo managed to destabilize the enemies. Meanwhile, the tank resisted the attacks from the orcs he had drawn to himself, constantly supported by the mages. The huntress had moved to the side of the battlefield, shooting at the orcs that were out of sight. As the arrows hit the first targets, the attention of the other orcs was diverted. All team members were giving their all, both the ranged attackers and the tank. In this way, the team successfully completed the rank E area. As the tank exited the testing area, he fell to his knees on the ground. Soon after, he collapsed completely. Kang-san and the team leader were surprised. Before them, the tank was collapsing while the paramedics rushed to attend to him. All the other members of Team 1 were exhausted. Some could barely stand. Still, they were congratulated, and the evaluation leader asked them to head to the waiting room. When Team 2 was called to the gate, Jo Han-byul looked worriedly at Kang-san. He swallowed hard, wondering if they would be okay. The portal opened and they entered the location. Jo Han-byul was the first to pass through the portal, stepping onto muddy ground. As he advanced, he wondered what kind of monster they would face. Believing that his tank was weaker than that of Team 1, he put pressure on himself to do his best. Not just him, but all the others felt the same way. Unaware of these thoughts was Kang-san. It was then that they heard the sound of mud being stepped on. Jo Han-byul's attention was immediately drawn. Alerting that something had appeared, he drew his bow and arrow, asking everyone to form up. The first monster jumped into the swamp where they were. Upon realizing it was a goblin, Jo Han-byul knocked an arrow. However, at that moment his feet began to sink. And it wasn't just his. The entire team started to sink into the mud. They gritted their teeth as they realized their legs were trapped. Normally, someone would conduct a preliminary investigation to understand the terrain and area before carrying out a raid. But in the case of the practical test, no information was provided in advance. Therefore, the ability to adapt to variables was also included in the scope of the evaluation. The goblins advanced quickly, leaping toward the group which couldn't move. They gritted their teeth in fear, but the first goblin had already drawn its weapon and jumped at them. However, the attack landed on something hard, Kang-san's shield. The protagonist drew his sword, counter-attacking swiftly. The goblin immediately recoiled after being hit, retreating to regroup with its allies. Looking back, the protagonist took control of the situation. Everyone, just stay calm. Goblins are just goblins after all. The tank's words calmed the group. However, the goblins seemed even more furious and charged again. They all advanced against a single target, Kang-san. From a distance, a goblin fired an arrow. Deflecting the attack with his sword, the protagonist frowned as he realized that the goblins were attacking in a coordinated manner. This was a clear sign that a hobgoblin was leading the assault. Even so, the protagonist didn't worry. He continued to attack the goblins as he now had good skills. He activated the Guardian's Will ability, enveloping his body in light. Based on the number of enemies around him, his defense and health regeneration increased by 12%. The goblins were blinded by the sudden brightness. Seizing the opportunity, Kang-san pushed the enemies surrounding him, knocking them to the ground. The leader of the evaluators watched the battle in silence. Even the members of the protagonist team couldn't believe what they were seeing. Jo Han-byul snapped back to reality and called everyone to join the fight. Immediately, one of the warriors advanced, striking a goblin with his sword. Jo Han-byul also knocked an arrow, hitting another goblin with great precision. The first enemy was defeated, causing the protagonist's bonus defense and regeneration effect to decrease by 1%. The decrease in the bonus continued as more goblins were defeated. However, the protagonist continued to push forward. It was then that he heard a noise coming from behind some leaves. Going on high alert, he immediately warned his team to back off. An attack struck Kang-san's shield when he least expected it. As the protagonist faced the enemy with a serious look, his companions were shocked. Before them appeared a gigantic monster, a blood orc, something that should never have appeared in a rank E area. Faced with the D-rank monster appearing in the E-rank area, Jo Han-byul was incredulous. He immediately commanded his team to retreat. The orc was pushing its way through the branches, but what caught the protagonist's attention wasn't the size of the monster. Sitting on the creature's shoulder was a woman dressed in white. With a lazy expression, Asmun waved at the protagonist. He gritted his teeth, wondering why she was there. The management team was in complete chaos with the unexpected appearance of the D-rank monster. The coordinator tried to communicate with the exploration team, seeking to understand what was happening. Furious, he shot a glare at the recruitment leader, finding it absurd that the test was occurring in the habitat of a blood orc. The exploration team, which was hiding, responded to the base, informing them that they had checked the area 3 times and found no trace of monsters like that. However, for the management team, it would be a disaster if anything happened to one of the applicants. Faced with so much controversy, they decided to interrupt the test halfway before the worst could happen. However, someone ordered the exploration team to wait a little longer to observe the situation. The leader of the management team was furious. He was extremely concerned about possible legal actions, as the media was closely watching him due to recent incidents during other tests. But the man who had given the order crossed his arms and said, "I understand your complaint, but I am Kim Myung-min. I am not a fool who makes wrong decisions. If something seems dangerous, I will intervene myself." With no alternative, the management leader accepted the decision, as Kim Myung-min was taking full responsibility. Still, no one in that room believed his word. After all, he had been expelled from the field before for having done exactly the same thing. And now, once again, new applicants were being put at risk because of his decision. As the responsible supervisor, Kim Myung-min was granted permission to take the risks and moved forward in silence. On the orc's shoulder, Asmun stretched. "The third trial, the difficulty has increased because of your karma. You need to ensure that each member of your team returns alive. If anyone perishes because of this orc, the blame will fall on you." The protagonist heard that voice echoing directly in his mind, realizing that no one else could hear it. Asmoon warned him that if anything happened to any team member, all the karma would fall on Kang San. Therefore, he needed to ensure everyone made it out safely. She also reminded him that he had done something similar on the first mission. Now he just needed to repeat the feat. While the protagonist was still processing this, Asmoon said her goodbyes, and the orc began to move. Without warning, the orc attacked with its gigantic axe. The blow struck the ground with force, missing everyone, but the protagonist, lying on the ground, realized that up close, that axe looked even bigger. He gritted his teeth, cursing Asmoon. He had barely qualified for the E-rank exam, and now they expected him to deal with an orc boss? The monster began to drag the axe back, preparing for another attack, while Kang San, still on the ground, cursed Asmoon and all the others who seemed determined to make him suffer for the karma of his past life. Immediately, the protagonist warned his team that he would hold the orc, asking everyone to prepare to attack. For Kang San, giving up was not an option. Even if the enemy was gigantic, he stood firm, bracing himself for the attack. He furrowed his brow, watching every movement attentively. The orc advanced with heavy steps through the mud. When the axe was swung, Kang San ducked and dodged precisely. The monster became confused after missing its strike and turned to look. It was then that the protagonist saw the muscles in the orc's arm flex. He immediately realized that the orc was going to make a new attack and once again ducked, dodging the new swing of the axe. Kang San felt a strong pressure from the wind on his nose, which made him aware of the danger of that blow. At the same time, Jo Han-byul grabbed one of the arrows from his quiver. Seeing the tank deal with the orc, Jo Han-byul quickly instructed everyone to prepare for battle. Almost everyone was filled with confidence. However, one team member was scared. He didn't understand what was happening, or if his team had gone crazy. Because of a crazy tank, all of this was happening. If he hadn't done that, the supervisors would have definitely intervened. The applicant knew that this was clearly an accident. It would be a great responsibility if someone got hurt. He looked up, trying to signal to the drone that he would not participate in the fight, wondering what the administration was doing. Obviously, they were watching. The team moved. Jo Han-byul jumped over the goblins, shooting arrows from an angle they couldn't dodge. After hitting several goblins, he landed on the ground and quickly fled. On the other side, a young woman was doing her best. Using her magic, she lifted a large log. With all her energy, she threw the log at the monsters. The orc noticed the object coming towards him. Immediately, he turned, pushing the log away and letting out a roar. Jo Han-byul didn't stay still. He shot an arrow from behind the log. However, the orc couldn't escape. Kang San had wisely trapped the orc's foot with his sword. With that, Kang San created an opportunity. Jo Han-byul activated more arrows, hitting the immobile target squarely. Being hit by several blows, the orc began to grow more furious. A dark energy spread from his back, and the arrows started to dissolve. The protagonist realized the problem behind this. This D-rank monster, besides being powerful, had a berserker ability. Unable to dodge, Kang San was hit. With the young man being thrown into the air, Jo Han-byul and supervisor Kim Young-min tried to understand what had happened. Jo Han-byul immediately ran to see how Kang San was doing. The protagonist fell to the ground, but before he could recover, he had to use his shield to block another attack. A third blow struck him as the orc attacked with the handle of the axe. His back hit the ground and his eyes widened with the impact. The test administrator was furious, showing Kim what was happening and asking what they should do now. However, at that moment, the orc's heel was hit. Kang San had managed to move quickly to attack the monster. At the same time, he used his healing aura, restoring 23% of his health points. The protagonist coughed heavily but did not give up. His companions urged him to fall back, which made him wonder if he should stop. He looked back but refused to give in. The key to victory would be to prevent the orc from passing that point. He needed to hold on until the end, so he told them not to worry about him and to keep fighting. In the observation room, the head of the administration was shocked, while Kim remained silent. Practically all the goblins had already been defeated. Now, the entire team was focused on confronting the orc. Even though they were tired from attacking, they needed to push a bit more. Being pressured from all sides, the orc sensed the danger. He swung his axe sideways and managed to hit someone behind him, Kang San, who protected himself with the shield. Despite this, he was thrown far away by the heavy attack. However, the orc's strike created an opening. From the side, a warrior managed to hit him with great precision. The orc roared in fury. With so much damage being inflicted on him, the orc fell to his knees. At that moment, the protagonist managed to rise again. Not only him, but also the leader of his team realized that they had won. However, Supervisor Kim knew it wasn't true. Suddenly, the orc got back up, roaring. He extended his arm and in an instant threw his axe in a direction. Jo Han-byul quickly realized who he had attacked and warned Kang San to be careful. The protagonist gritted his teeth, seeing the danger flying toward him. However, he had a realization. The axe was not aimed at him. There was someone fleeing there. The protagonist looked back, wondering why someone was there. The axe spun rapidly, targeting the only hunter who had stayed out of the battle. At that moment, the protagonist remembered the instruction for the trial. He needed to bring all team members back safely, without any fatalities. If something happened to anyone, the blame would be on him due to his karma. Later, the leader of the organization bowed to the members of Team 2, deeply apologizing. It seems there was a problem during the exploration of the test area. It's our fault for not detecting the presence of the orc chief in advance. Nothing can forgive our mistake, but we will provide the maximum compensation possible. Johan Buell was furious. However, Yang San, whom he was carrying, cried, knowing that he was the true culprit for what had happened. The man who had been silent until that moment, Kim Young-min, also lowered his head, apologizing. We should have stopped the test when the orc appeared, but we didn't. I will take full responsibility for what happened. Hearing the man's words, everyone on the team stared at him. The leader of the organization team desperately tried to change the subject, but Kim Young-min interrupted him, speaking to a specific person. So, Mr. Kang-san, if you don't mind, could you spare us a little of your time? The protagonist went to a room where he was served a hot drink. It was seal tea with salmon, and there were waffles for him to snack on. Obviously, Kang-san enjoyed the delicious food, stuffing himself. Kim Young-min looked at Kang-san's profile, seeing that he had been a meat shield for 6 years. He wanted to know if that was true. Confused, the protagonist confirmed it. Kim Young-min honestly said he couldn't believe it, having seen the battle with his own eyes. Your understanding and judgment as a tanker were superior to any tanker I've ever seen, making your evaluation as rank F seem like a misunderstanding. With a tanker like you at the front, I was confident that even a D-rank orc chief wouldn't be a problem. The protagonist realized why they had just been watching, just as Asmoon hadn't interfered. Kim Young-min got straight to the point, stating he wanted Kang-san on the ranger team. The protagonist almost choked on his food, surprised that the man was a ranger. Kim Young-min revealed that he was temporarily working as an examiner, but planned to return in a few months. He offered Kang-san the option to register as a full-time employee or as a mercenary, if he preferred not to be too tied down. Kim Young-min couldn't help but reveal that he was impressed. In that final attack against the orc, Kang-san had jumped without hesitation, saving his teammate. Although he knew Kang-san had done it because he had a plan. As he said, Kang-san activated the ability Guardian's Will. His health points were fully restored, and his defense power was temporarily doubled. Despite this, Kim Young-min knew that not everyone would take such a risk. Handing a contract to Kang-san, Kim Young-min promised him the best treatment, asking him to please join the ranger team. The protagonist covered his mouth with his hand, hiding his disbelief. The Rangers were a special force operated with government support, where only specialists gathered, and now they wanted to recruit him. For Kang-san, this was unbelievable. He had never imagined that such a good opportunity would arise when he had barely become an E-rank hunter. His hand trembled as he reached for the contract, as the emotion was too overwhelming to bear. Despite all the incredible feelings, he thought about rejecting the offer. He knew the Rangers well. The Rangers were those who eliminated monsters invading the real world, and when necessary, entered other worlds to handle missions. This meant stepping into dangerous territory voluntarily, doing exactly the kind of thing that Asmoon and his friends wanted. The protagonist wanted to think carefully about this, but he noticed something. He ran his hand over the contract, which began to become blurry. Suddenly, a mission appeared on top of the contract, his 4th trial. He needed to become a member of the Rangers and dedicate himself to the world. Still facing the contract, the protagonist rubbed his eyes. He looked again at the page of the contract, realizing it truly asked him to join the Rangers. As he turned to the 2nd page, there was the reward for accepting Kim Young-min's proposal, some stat points, as well as a special piece of information. Trembling with anger, the protagonist cursed Asmoon. He wasn't even being allowed to read the contract, so he let go of the page he was holding and, lowering his head with a sigh, accepted the offer. Kim Young-min was surprised to see him accept so quickly but thanked him. However, the protagonist interrupted him, stating that he would only accept under the condition of acting as a mercenary. Even if I'm considered part of your team, I will decide when I will accept missions or not. The protagonist was willing to accept the offer, but he didn't want to work too hard. He wanted to complete only the tests that Asmoon assigned to him, because if he participated in all the Rangers' jobs, he would only be drawing closer to his end. The man with the thin mustache accepted Kang-san's condition, thanking him for accepting the proposal. However, as he flipped through the pages, he showed that everything the protagonist had requested was already in the contract. Having settled the contract issue, the protagonist prepared to leave. However, at the moment he got up, he felt something terrifying. Energies of corrupted beings and suffering entities overflowed in his body. That feeling was so heavy that he had to lean on the table in front of him to avoid falling. Kim Myungmin was surprised and asked Kang-san if he was okay. Trembling, the protagonist affirmed that he was fine. Despite this, strange scenarios began to flash before his eyes. Covering his mouth to protect himself from the disgusting smell, he wondered if this could be the special information mentioned. With something shocking happening, the protagonist almost vomited all the tea and waffles, terrifying the ranger. A week later, in a spacious area, several buses were lined up side by side. From one of the buses, Kang-san got off amid the cold. That special information he had received was related to his past. As soon as he accepted the trial, information flowed into his mind. Kang-san felt so nauseated that he couldn't resist. A new message had reached his knowledge, ordering him to go to Chorwan in Gangwon province. There, if he could overcome the trial dungeon, he could obtain a new fragment of memory from his past life. Arriving in the mountains, the protagonist understood that Asmoon was trying to pass on the memories of a monster to him. The dungeon he was heading to was a link between the hidden world and reality, connecting them on the surface. The dungeon was precisely where the human world connected to the underworld. Due to its location, the dungeon was not easily discovered by people. Kang-san needed to embark on a long journey through the snow. On the day the unregistered dungeon, which had remained undiscovered for a decade, opened, a devastating event occurred that could be described as hell itself opening. The memories of Kang-san's past revealed precisely this about the interior of that unregistered dungeon. Reaching the entrance of the pit, he still didn't know why Asmoon was trying to reveal memories of his past. The feeling of nausea had persisted in his body throughout the week. Kang-san wanted to discover what it was. Facing the freezing cold, Kang-san zipped up his jacket. Thus, he entered the unregistered dungeon. As soon as he entered, he placed a magical barrier, sealing the cave entrance to prevent monsters from escaping to the surface. Then, since the internal environment of the dungeon was unknown, Kang-san secured food and supplies. He had entered prepared for battles. Thirdly, he had a lantern, something he had prepared, but in the dark it was difficult to find. Since most dungeons didn't have much light, as soon as Kang-san turned on the lantern, he came face to face with a monster. Startled, the protagonist stepped back, falling on his backside. Confused, he stared at the monsters, which were, in fact, skeletons. Kang-san knew there was definitely something there. In the past, he had almost died fighting just one skeleton, but now, in front of him, there were 5. Even without vocal cords, the skeleton roared as it approached Kang-san. With the lantern illuminating the cave, he used his sword to strike the first enemy. An energy overflowed from the skeleton when the attack hit it, causing it to lose all its strength. Senseless skeletons would continue to attack until they were completely shattered. However, they were weak against attacks imbued with holy power. This attribute inflicted pain and destroyed dark-type monsters. Feeling the power within him, the protagonist thanked Asmoon for the first time. If there were only dark-type monsters, he was confident he could conquer the dungeon alone. Many concerns weighed on Kang-san when he entered the dungeon for the first time. But after arriving at the location, his feeling of nausea improved a bit. He wondered if Asmoon was really trying to give him a real gift this time, as a reward for all the hardships he had endured. The protagonist recalled how he had narrowly survived many times. As the protagonist explored the dungeon with his lantern, he found a wooden chest. He felt happy, realizing that this mission was indeed to obtain a gift. Thanking Asmoon, he walked toward the chest. However, suddenly, a dark energy surrounded him as a monster appeared. When Kang-san realized it, he was already being hit. He was pushed several meters back but managed to stop, staying on his feet. A spiked iron ball was spinning rapidly. Upon opening his eyes, the protagonist was surprised. Before him stood a large Dullahan. The monster hurled its iron ball at the protagonist before he had time to think. The protagonist opened a potion vial while simultaneously leaning back to dodge the attack. Using the sharpness bonus on his sword, Kang-san launched a counterattack. The protagonist's sword struck its target directly. However, surprise crossed his face as he saw that it hadn't even scratched the knight's armor. The knight moved his body toward the protagonist, again trying to hit him with the ball. The protagonist put the sword in front of his body, managing to block the attack. Gritting his teeth, he wondered what that thing was. As the sharpening spell had not worked, that armor was a complete monster. To make matters worse, the protagonist noticed that his sword was getting damaged. The Dullahan didn't care, attacking with its horse. The protagonist was worried because if his sword broke in that situation, the chance of surviving against a rank D monster would be 0. He remembered the message he received. If he could get through the trial dungeon, he would obtain a fragment of his memory. That's when he realized something. Immediately, he looked back at the chest in the chamber of the dungeon. This time, there was an instruction to overcome the trial, so he didn't need to risk his life in a senseless fight. The protagonist believed that the chest was Asmoon's reward, but he didn't have time to confirm. Grabbing the small chest and abandoning his sword, he decided to run. To do this, he needed to avoid the Dullahan. He wondered how a headless creature knew where to attack. He considered whether he should run randomly to confuse the monster. That's when he faced the horse the knight was riding. He blamed himself for not thinking of this sooner and grabbed a new vial. Since horses had eyes, he used that vial. Thrown upward, the vial exploded in a bright light. The horse was blinded by the light and began to jump, confusing the Dullahan knight. Without the information from the horse, the Dullahan started swinging the iron ball, attacking all sides of the chamber while Kang-san fled. The protagonist looked back and then realized that the horse was charging toward him. The knight pointed forward, commanding the horse to go in just one direction. A magical barrier blocked the exit of the dungeon. The protagonist appeared beneath the barrier, trying desperately to disable it. He was frantically trying to deactivate it, but it was taking too long. The magical barrier, when installed at the entrance of a dungeon, blocked approaching monsters. However, humans could not cross it freely either, and it took some time to deactivate. After acting desperately, the magical barrier was deactivated. The protagonist jumped out of the cave hurriedly with the chest as the entrance collapsed. Looking back, there was no longer an entrance. He sighed in relief, seeing that he no longer needed to block the entrance to the dungeon. Opening the chest, he discovered that the reward was a spiritual skill, and surprisingly, a bottle of water. The protagonist drank the skill potion, acquiring the Trial Shield, a skill that was fused with the Guardian Shield. He received a notification. According to the will of the conjurer, he could draw the attention of nearby monsters. When the Trial Shield was activated, defense would temporarily increase by 20%. Additionally, recovery effects would be temporarily doubled. Although he didn't know whether he should be happy with the skill that only enhanced his tanking ability, he moved on to the next item. After hearing about his past, Kang-san thought it was a nonsensical story, but everything Asmoon had said was happening, and as a result, he was getting what he wanted. Kang-san didn't care about the sacred will. If regaining his memories helped him achieve what he wanted, he would drink that liquid at will. Opening the bottle, he poured the water into his mouth. After drinking the water, he waited. That's when he remembered an injured man shouting at him. "I, Dojang Hyun, the swordsman of the volcano sect, swear by my name that I will defeat this evil being." This Dojang Hyun was on a road where several people lay fallen, people who had been defeated before he appeared. However, before he could do anything, a shadow with red eyes leaped at him. Dojang Hyun fell to his knees after suffering numerous damages, staring at that person. He asked why they were doing this. The shadow, with its back to him, ignored him. However, Dojang Hyun was outraged by what had been done to so many innocent people. He was furious at how the whole country had been drowned in a Red Sea. That silent shadow turned to look at Dojang Hyun. A reason? Is that what you want to know? The shadow thoughtfully walked toward the man. Completely stained in crimson tones, he smiled. "Because I like it." Dojang Hyun didn't understand why. However, he wouldn't understand anything more as his life was ending there. The protagonist awoke from his memories, eyes wide in surprise. He remained there, on his knees, digesting all the information. In the end, he couldn't help but feel confused and incredulous. The protagonist obtained two things, Blood Key and the first form of the sword technique. The first part would increase his attack by 1% for each elimination. When he reached 100, his technique would level up. He also gained a permanent 10% increase in attack power. As for the sword technique, in its first form, it could only be used by those who learned Qi. A devastating strike would be unleashed, temporarily increasing his own attack by 30% and granting double the Qi statistics for a limited time. Lastly, enemies hit would suffer uncontrollably for a period. The protagonist remembered the arguments from his childhood. Someone who claimed to be his mother's brother took all her money whenever he pleased. While they argued, he would always hide, crying. In the future, when he went to take the exam to pass to the next grade, a serious incident occurred with the bus, resulting in numerous casualties. From a young age, he began to realize that all of this had happened because of him, from the misfortunes his mother suffered to the incidents he himself was involved in. He attributed the loss of his parents to his own existence. This always happened to the people around him. Even the terrible things that occurred in this world, he knew were his fault. After returning home and resting, the protagonist woke up to a phone call. The person on the other end was happy to hear from him. It was none other than Young Min Hyuk. On the other side, the man excitedly asked the protagonist if he would like to join them. In the typically bustling cafe, Kang-sam met his friend, who enthusiastically inquired about his life. "It's been a while. How have you been? I heard you got promoted. So are you joining our celestial management?" Kang Sam, with tired eyes, asked what he was talking about. The protagonist wondered why they would choose him for such a role. However, there was something more urgent to consider. Min-yuk, the kid in front of him, was rumored to have become a hunter as soon as he entered adulthood. Kang Sam wasn't sure about his circumstances, but it seemed he had landed a good company. Kang Sam still held some memories from the past, like an accident, for instance. Once, when he was heading to school with a peer, they both fell off a scooter. While his partner, who was driving, complained, two other students approached. Though one of them laughed at what had happened, the other, a bald boy, asked if they were okay. The bald boy was especially concerned about Kang Sam, who, despite having a few scratches, affirmed he was fine. The young man sharing the scooter with Kang Sam gritted his teeth in fear. "Every time I ride with him, we fall. Is it because you're a scumbag who exploits your parents or what?" Kang Sam was furious to hear that damn person talking about his parents. He was about to attack him when the bald boy on the other scooter yelled, "Hey, what are you saying to my friend?" Scared, the young man fell to the ground, but the bald boy didn't back down. "Even when you're angry, there are things that shouldn't be said. Apologize now." Frightened by the big guy, the young man got up and apologized. Without giving further importance to what had happened, the bald young man got back on the scooter. "Come on, let's go." Thus, the four students got back on their scooters and went on their way. The protagonist remembered very well that the one who had helped him back then was indeed Min-yuk. Min-yuk knew that Kang Sam had become an E-rank hunter. "It's been 6 years. Now you're going to chase after real high-level raids, aren't you? You must know that having a management team makes everything easier. You'll find the most appropriate members for your team. We can help you grow by creating career plans." Hearing the proposal, the protagonist frowned. With intrusive thoughts, he wondered if it was okay, if it was right for him to become a hunter. With a downcast gaze, the protagonist prepared to refuse Min-yuk, stating that he had only met him to see him after so long. At the moment, things seemed friendlier. Min-yuk looked at Kang Sam with slight mockery. "Be honest, you weren't promoted by your skills, were you? You were stuck in F class for 6 years. Did some supervisor take pity, or did you get lucky on the test? If a manager sticks with a low-level hunter like you and keeps managing him, he might also remain active for longer." Seeing Min-yuk's true intention, the protagonist lowered his head, falling silent. The more Min-yuk spoke, the more Kang Sam tried to avoid listening to him, to the point of closing his eyes and trying to think of something else. But what came to his mind was the scene of what would be his past life, and the sea of destruction he had supposedly caused. Thinking about that scene suddenly startled Kang Sam. Placing his hands on his head, he moaned as he trembled. Min-yuk was scared by the sudden change and asked what was wrong. He tried to ask if Kang Sam was okay, but he didn't get any response. Thinking it was because of what he had said, Min-yuk tried to ease the situation. "Did I go too far?" He tried to make a new proposal, but at that moment, Kang Sam's phone rang with a disaster alert. Gritting his teeth from the headache, the protagonist stood up to say goodbye. "Hey Min-yuk, it was good to see you after so long, but I'm sorry, I don't think it's time for this yet." Kang Sam's words seemed like an indefinite farewell. "Today, I really wanted to meet you. That's all. So thank you for everything." Min-yuk was confused by Kang Sam's strange words and reminded him to take his phone. It was at that exact moment that they heard a loud noise nearby. From the loudspeakers scattered throughout the neighborhood, the warning was quickly broadcast. "This is an emergency alert. The sudden appearance of an E-class creature poses a threat. All citizens are advised to evacuate to a safe location until the situation is under control." Trembling with fear, Min-yuk couldn't believe that it was happening so close to where they were. The protagonist made a quick decision. "Let's go outside first. We'll be fine if we follow the direction people are fleeing." From the broken portal, a large lizard holding a trident had escaped. Running through the streets, it invaded the cafe where Kang Sam was, jumping on a civilian. The lizard swung its trident, startling all the other people who fled screaming. Beneath the monster, the older man trembled with fear, screaming for help. "Please save me." Kang Sam was about to flee with Min-yuk when he saw an old woman run towards the lizard, screaming, "Honey!" Hearing the cries for help, the protagonist stopped fleeing and faced the monster. Seeing Kang Sam's intention, Min-yuk grabbed his arm. "Hey, what are you doing? Let's go. This is just the beginning. Soon dozens of these monsters will appear. No one will blame an E-class hunter for running away. Don't try to act strong. Just worry about staying alive today." Despite Min-yuk's words, the memory of the Crimson Sea he had created poured a large dose of guilt into the protagonist's heart. Before him were the elderly couple and the monster roaring in their direction. Suddenly, the monster looked around as if something had caught its attention. At that moment, Kang Sam tried to imagine what he must have lived in his past life. Closing his eyes, he tried to remember the dread he inflicted on his enemies and the strength he possessed. It was then that the knowledge of a technique awakened in his mind. The first sword technique was activated as he unexpectedly advanced, drawing his sword and striking the lizard monster. Kang Sam used all the strength he could to push the creature away and successfully allowed the old woman to rescue her husband. Kang Sam, in his heart, knew he was no longer the same person he had been in his past life. Now, he was someone who would help others. Everyone, run! Get out of here before more monsters appear. Seeing what Kang Sam was doing, Minhyuk was dumbfounded with surprise. In a shelter, authorities commanded the refugees, guiding them to settle down safely and calmly. In a corner of this shelter, Minhyuk was on the phone with his senior, apologizing because the person they had tried to recruit for the company would not be joining them. The senior was confused and began to yell into the phone, "What? You idiot? You can't even handle something so simple? You said we are the celestial management." Minhyuk confirmed what he had done, but said that things were still not confirmed. Minhyuk Sr. became increasingly irritated. "Damn it! It's not confirmed because you don't know how to do your job. Be it rank E or F, if someone hears about celestial management, they come running to join, understand?" Minhyuk apologized countless times to his senior's shouts until he hung up the phone. Thus, the young man sighed. Meanwhile, Kang Sam was facing a battle against several lizard men who, with their spears, tried to hit him from every possible angle. One of the lizards roared ferociously in the city street, attacking civilians with its spear. People who hadn't yet reached the shelters ran with fear plastered on their faces and screams escaping their mouths. Faced with so many monsters, Kang Sam jumped on one, protecting a group of people. However, a man a bit further away was out of his reach and couldn't be saved. Gritting his teeth, Kang Sam knew there wasn't much he could do. Monsters were everywhere. He could only buy time to make the situation less dangerous. Using a tanking ability, he activated the Shield of Judgment. Immediately, all the surrounding monsters stopped attacking civilians and looked in another direction. A man who was about to be attacked screamed for help, but just as he expected the fatal blow, he realized nothing had happened. All the monsters now had a single focus, the one who had provoked them. Even though he had attracted all the enemies, there were too many monsters for Kang Sam to face alone. The most he could do was resist until reinforcements arrived, while giving it his all. The first lizard quickly advanced, throwing its trident at Kang Sam. Thanks to the skill's effect, the protagonist's defense had increased by 20%, allowing him to successfully block the attack. With his will activated, Kang Sam counterattacked with his shield. His defense and stamina regeneration rates increased by 82% due to the number of enemies present, allowing him to recover quickly and keep fighting. With his stamina in check, he had enough energy to spin his body and pierce the armor of one of the monsters. As soon as they saw one of their comrades defeated, the lizards roared in anger. However, quickly another one fell. The effects of Kang Sam's passive arts were activating. By defeating two monsters, his attack power was temporarily increased by 2%. Now, Kang Sam's sword was stained with the red of battle, and he stared at it with a surprised look. However, he didn't have time to observe it for long, as a roar cut through the air when more monsters advanced towards him. Ammunition drums were fired fiercely at the enemies. The soldiers had entered the fray, combating the threats. The lizards, who had never faced weapons of that type, were hit without being able to defend themselves. As a rain of attacks covered the countless monsters, a ceasefire order was given. A bit more silence settled on the battlefield. However, it was short-lived, until the lieutenant shouted again, "Start entering. Each squad must search the buildings according to their leader's orders. If you find any survivors, rescue them. Eliminate all remaining monsters that enter the field of vision." A group of soldiers entered one of the buildings, a cafe, and began to explore it. In the back of the building, they found a young man leaning on a sword with a defeated lizard beside him. The person who found the young man was surprised to recognize him. "Mr. Kang Sam?" Shortly after, as they exited the building, one of the soldiers called the lieutenant, asking him to look at something. Curious, the lieutenant approached to listen to the soldier. "This is CCTV footage recorded by one of the buildings moments ago. In the recording, the lieutenant saw a young man fighting alone against several lizard monsters. Observing how he fought intensely, unafraid of getting hurt, and with precise attacks, the lieutenant was tremendously surprised. In his mind, there was only one possibility. Who is this guy? Is he a ranger? The soldier who had found the footage wasn't sure. The only thing he had discovered was that the young man had defeated all the monsters by himself. The lieutenant frowned, annoyed. He must be just another hunter playing hero. The soldier, however, didn't want to see it that way. Thanks to the young man, no casualties had been recorded, which was a relief. But the lieutenant insisted. "First, arrest the suspect and contain him. Even if he did something good, if we let incompetent hunters run wild, we'll be the ones to suffer later." The soldier received the order, but a doubt still lingered in his mind. Was the young man in the footage still alive? The person who found Kang Sam called him repeatedly, trying to wake him up. The protagonist slowly opened his eyes and asked, Who are you? Kim Chun-shik took off his helmet, revealing his identity. I'm the archer you saved in that dungeon. The protagonist vaguely remembered him, realizing he was the man who had knelt in gratitude. Kang Sam wondered if Chun-shik's grandmother had had a successful surgery. Trying to get up, Kang Sam aroused Chun-shik's concern. You're seriously injured. Don't tell me you were the one who defeated all those monsters by yourself. Chun-shik was extremely worried about Kang Sam's condition, but couldn't stop him. It was then that he saw Kang Sam collapse to the ground right in front of him. Chun-shik didn't know what to do. As far as he knew, Kang Sam was just an F rank, which meant that if he were discovered, he would be taken away immediately. He would never let someone who saved his life be harmed before his eyes. Placing Kang Sam on his shoulders, he carried the protagonist away. Stealthily, he looked from side to side before leaving the room, taking Kang Sam without anyone seeing him. When the protagonist began to regain consciousness, he saw a grandmother. He wondered where he was until he realized they were in a room. Gritting his teeth in pain, he asked where he was. The old lady sitting beside him was surprised to see him wake up and explained that he was in a hospital. With eyes shining with joy, she revealed a few things. The doctor said it was a miracle your body is well. When you arrived at the hospital, I truly thought you wouldn't make it. Now stop worrying and just rest. She held out a piece of apple. It's nothing much. Eat well, sleep well, and listen to the doctor. That's all you need to do. The protagonist took the fork with the apple, staring at it before eating. The talkative old lady continued. You're the young man who saved my grandson's life, right? I've wanted to meet you for a long time. He said you're an admirable person, you know. Kang Sam, being treated with such tenderness for the first time in a long while, bit into the apple given to him. Remembering the past, feeling a maternal warmth so long forgotten, he could tell that this moment was magical. Later that day, reporters filled the streets to announce what had happened. This afternoon, an incident occurred at an E-rank gate near Hotel B in Wangsimni. This incident, which could have caused significant casualties, ended with a safe evacuation thanks to a courageous citizen. The citizen disappeared from the scene immediately after resolving the situation, but we can hear the testimony of someone who briefly encountered him. Beside the reporter was Kim Chun-shik, trying to contain his emotion. When I arrived at the scene, an incredible number of defeated monsters lay at that man's feet. He was tremendously injured, so I tried to help him, but he quickly left the scene. People in the hospitals who had survived with only minor injuries were impressed by Kim Chun-shik's words. Giving an interview like this might go against his wishes, but I wanted citizens to know that such an admirable person exists. Hearing the entire interview, the protagonist became extremely embarrassed, to the point of wanting to hide under the covers. Despite his shyness, he acknowledged that this time, he had faced great danger. This wasn't a trial imposed by Asmoon. He had fought of his own free will. Kang Sam could remember the battle as if he were still in it. Jumping over cars and trucks, he used the terrain to his advantage to attack the lizards before they could touch him. At one point, even after defeating 10 monsters, the number of enemies didn't decrease. This made him regret, albeit slightly, having volunteered for the battle. But then, the otherworldly chi was activated in his body. With his attack power temporarily increasing by 10%, he leaped back into combat. A lizard man attacked him from behind, raising a golden trident for a sneak attack. However, before the trident was thrown, Kang Sam's attack hit it first. The scent of combat stimulated his brain, allowing him to notice the monster running behind the one he had just defeated. His movements became more agile, making it easier to dodge enemy tridents. Little by little, as he delved deeper into the battle, Kang Sam's eyes became darker and darker, until only a red pupil remained against a black background. With sharpened vision, he jumped on the last lizard man, throwing it to the ground and cementing his victory. When the wild nature of the otherworldly chi was partially unleashed, one of Kang Sam's eyes returned to normal, and he awoke. He didn't understand what had happened. His body had acted on its own. His attack had been controlled beyond his will. Once again, the shadow chi was activated, this time temporarily increasing his attack power by 20%. The shadow chi began to activate with increasingly overwhelming force, according to the number of monsters Kang Sam defeated. The scene resembled what he had experienced in the other world, but now, with monsters. After several activations, when Kang Sam was already heavily panting, the shadow chi activated once more. But this time, the Guardian's will was awakened. His health points were completely restored, and his defense temporarily doubled. The abnormal effect called madness was removed, which dispersed the shadow chi, and allowed him to finally rest. Remembering the state he had been in made Kang Sam bite his lips as he trembled. It was impossible to imagine what would have happened if the Guardian's will hadn't blocked that effect. Kang Sam knew that the power of the Shadow Chi didn't belong to his world. That's why even the system couldn't explain it clearly. Seeing that he was worried enough to put his hands on his face, the grandmother pushed another slice of apple toward him. Awakening with the kindness, the protagonist thanked her. The grandmother, looking at the television, commented, "There are still admirable people like this in the world, aren't there?" The protagonist almost choked on his apple as he heard her state that she had received a donation for her surgery. He was even more startled when he realized she was talking about him in both situations. The grandmother's monologue continued. "Yes, I was surprised. I heard the donor is someone I've never met. He hid his identity so well that it wasn't easy to find out who it was. What kind of person sends such a large sum of money to someone they don't even know?" The protagonist, hearing that, remembered how much he had to empty his bank account. Suddenly, he felt a slight pain in his chest. The grandmother continued her monologue. "The surgeon said the surgery would go well, but it's very difficult for me to accept this money and use it." The protagonist was startled to hear that she hadn't had the surgery yet. She explained that she had decided to go through with it since her condition wasn't good. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Kang Sam was relieved. His money hadn't been spent in vain. She continued to tell her story. She said she didn't feel qualified to receive such a blessing. Her grandson had grown up without parents, and she already considered herself blessed just by not leaving him alone in the world. Hearing that, the protagonist swallowed the apple with difficulty. Her words awakened in him a deep understanding and inner reflection. "Exactly. I am different from monsters. I am someone who feels the value of life by helping others." Smiling, the protagonist replied to the grandmother, "You are more than blessed, so I hope your surgery is a success." Without Kang Sam realizing it, his faith had strengthened, and his divine power had increased by 3 points. After leaving the hospital, the protagonist headed to an isolated area in the countryside. On this trip, his goal was to learn more about the Shadow Chi, to understand its side effects and the conditions for evolving it. It was impossible to perform experiments with Shadow Chi in real combat situations because of the risks, so Kang Sam wanted to practice and try to control it as much as possible at the training center. He believed that serious training would certainly help him, so he embarked on this journey. As soon as he arrived at the building, he went to the reception where they confirmed his application. The receptionist checked the data and confirmed Kang Sam's information. He warned him that once inside he couldn't leave for a month, something Kang Sam agreed with. With the confirmations made, the receptionist explained that, according to the normal course chosen, a training schedule had been prepared according to the system, and that it would be advisable to follow it. Soon, a woman appeared to guide Kang Sam around the facility. The protagonist was surprised, as it was the first time someone had guided him, but he didn't question anything. The woman, as she walked beside him, explained, "For proficiency skill training, once a day, 20 monsters of a certain rank will be allocated. If you defeat all 20 monsters, you will have to wait 24 hours before training again." As she spoke, they arrived at a room with a lock larger than themselves. As soon as Kang Sam entered, the woman warned that she would lock the door. The protagonist thanked her and began to prepare. He wanted to endure a full month in that place. Before closing the door, the woman called out to Kang Sam. Showing her true face, she smiled. "The 5th trial has been assigned. The karma of a bad person has forcibly increased the difficulty level of the training ground. The flow of time in this place will now be slower than in the outside world. If you survive for 300 days in here, only 30 days will have passed outside. You will be able to resolve part of your karma with this. Your reward will be 5 divine power points." When a month passed in the outside world, the protagonist checked the monsters he had defeated during that time. An announcement sounded in the room where he was. "Mr. Kang Sam, your 1-month usage period has come to an end. Please exit after clearing the training ground." The protagonist handed over his card. As usual, the man at the reception, seeing him after this time, was surprised. Kang Sam's aura seemed completely different. His body was healed with well-defined muscles, almost doubling in size. Kang Sam smiled, showing his considerably grown hair, and thanked the receptionist. From there, the protagonist took advantage of the training center's amenities, starting with a haircut. He also shaved his beard, though he didn't have a child's face. It was practically hairless. Finally, he relaxed in a nice bath, in a large pool. Upon leaving the training center building, Kang Sam went to a soup restaurant. The spoon quickly filled his mouth. After eating all the rice, he lifted the bowl to drink the soup broth. Then he enjoyed a mint ice cream. He returned home after a long time. Entering the bathroom, he tossed the bag he was carrying behind him. Then, He turned on the light in the small room and walked to his bed. Throwing himself onto the mattress, he could finally rest. Thus ended the period of his 5th trial. A promised reward was delivered as he cursed the bitch Asmoon. In a residential neighborhood, something unusual was happening. Large humanoid monsters wielding clubs were running through the streets. But these monsters, causing huge confusion, were already in the sights of the soldiers. Kim Chun-shik, one of the soldiers, had already confirmed the target ahead and kept his aim steady on them. Shots were fired, but all were blocked by the monsters, whose hides, as tough as steel, resisted. Being attacked, one of the monsters ripped off a car door and used it as a shield as it advanced towards the soldiers. They, however, didn't flinch and continued to follow their orders. When the monsters were dangerously close, an order was given. First Class Soldier Park, now's the time. Without the monster expecting it, it took a direct hit in the middle of its forehead. The shooter, who was on top of a building, sighed at the result of his precision. From above, he yelled to Chun-shik, Thanks to you guys, I made it here." Chun-shik returned the greeting, congratulating the soldier on his feat. A short while later, all the soldiers gathered in the transport truck. Soldier Park received a call as soon as he got into the truck, and talking to the person on the other end, asked them to be careful. As soon as he hung up, he frowned, visibly annoyed. Beside him, Chun-shik teased him. "Is it your younger brother again?" Soldier Park sighed, annoyed with his brother who never listened to him. Chun-shik realized how much his colleague cared, but the comment only made him more irritated. "Care about him? No way, he's super ugly. Want to see a photo?" Before the agent could show his brother's photo, Chun-shik interrupted him. "That always brings bad luck, First Class Agent Park." Being held back, Park acknowledged that Chun-shik was right and put his phone away. At that moment, a soldier outside the truck called for Kim Chun-shik, informing him that he had a visitor. Surprised and curious, he got down. Waiting for him was a woman who introduced herself. "Hello, Mr. Kim Chun-shik. I'm reporter Kim Min-young." With an raised eyebrow, the soldier took the reporter's business card. He already guessed what she wanted. "So you want me to tell you who the protagonist tanker of the Wang Simni incident is?" That was exactly the information the reporter was looking for. Although the news hadn't received much attention, the skills demonstrated by that tanker were too impressive for an E rank. Shaking his head, Chun-shik completely refused to reveal the protagonist's identity. The reporter understood his hesitation. It wasn't right to expose someone who wished to remain anonymous, but she still wanted to explore Kim Chun-shik's thoughts. She confronted him, understanding well how people worked. Someone who truly wants to keep someone anonymous doesn't give interviews like that with such enthusiasm, desperately praising the person. That seemed more like the essence of a reporter trying to spread good news about a good person. Sweating coldly, Chun-shik tried to deny her thoughts. It was as if she were a psychic. He couldn't understand how the reporter seemed to know so much. Knowing that he wouldn't reveal anything, even under pressure, she sought an alternative. She rummaged through her bag and handed an envelope to Chun-shik. As soon as he took the envelope, a man in the truck began to yell, "Kim Chun-shik, let's go now!" He quickly turned, answering the captain's call. The reporter watched as he walked away carrying the envelope. After showering, Chun-shik prepared to see the contents of the envelope. The reporter had said it was a small gift and asked that if he appreciated it, he show a little goodwill. Wondering what could be inside, Chun-shik pulled out the document. To his surprise, it was the receipt for the donation made by Kang Sam. A little over a month earlier, when Kim Chun-shik regained consciousness in the hospital after being saved by Kang Sam, he had a significant experience. In the hospital courtyard, he took a deep breath, happy to be alive. Always enthusiastic, Chun-shik brought coffees to some receptionists, thanking them for their hard work. They always responded with gratitude, commenting on how exhausted they were with the hospital routine. After delivering the coffees, Chun-shik brought up the topic he really wanted to discuss, the unpaid hospital bills. Seeing him bring up the subject, the receptionists exchanged glances, remembering they already wanted to talk to him about it. Expecting bad news, Chun-shik was scared. He quickly bowed before them. "I'll pay them no matter what. Please don't kick my grandmother out." The hospital staff were embarrassed by his sincere plea. He had panicked for nothing. Actually, someone made a donation that covered all the bills. Distraught as he was, Chun-shik barely heard what they said. Still kneeling, he begged them for time until he could get some money. Insisting gently, the receptionist calmed him down and made him pay attention. "An anonymous donor paid all the hospital bills, even the costs of your grandmother's surgery. There are no more outstanding debts. You don't need to worry." Chun-shik was completely shocked by what he had just heard. The receptionists themselves confessed that they had also worried about the protagonist of his grandmother's surgery, but now they were immensely relieved and happy. Upon discovering, with the donation receipt, that Kang Sam was responsible for everything, Chun-shik couldn't hold back his tears. He could hardly believe what was happening. He had never been able to properly thank his benefactor when he met him, and now he realized he had received much more than he ever imagined he deserved. Wiping his tears, Chunshik took out the card he had saved from his pocket. He read the reporter's name and contact number. Kim Min-young, in turn, received the message she had expected. In it, Kim Chun-shik deeply thanked her for the gift but apologized as he could not reveal any information about the person involved in the incident. Clicking her tongue, Kim Min-young sighed. I never thought he was someone with so little professional ethics, but that only makes me even more curious. Who could this person involved in the incident be? Kim Min-young, a reporter and hunter scout, vowed to herself that she would find the mysterious tanker from the incident. The person Kim Min-young was looking for had a sour expression at that moment. With a random group, Kang Sam had entered the ant habitat dungeon. Han Biol, a 21-year-old ranger and the group's leader, thanked Kang Sam for his presence and for answering their last-minute request. Han Biol was a little worried about the fog in the area and wasn't sure if they should proceed. The sub-tanker next to him, Young Chan-woo, 20 years old, found the fog strange, something the exploration team should have commented on beforehand. The last group member, the D-rank mage Yan Woo-bin, chose not to comment as he was nervous. Slapping his own face, the protagonist simply accepted his karma and the bad luck that followed him, this time in the form of fog. He cleared his throat, stating that this wasn't a problem they couldn't solve. Visibility is short due to the fog, but we can distinguish outlines at a distance of 10 meters. We can use an area with less terrain interference and then allocate signal lines to locate the monsters. Jung Chan-woo asked if Kang Sam wanted them to blindly wait for the monsters, but the protagonist preferred to attract them. Taking out a jar of golden honey, he showed that he had some of the item. Ants would go crazy when they smelled the honey, so they just needed to spread it on some rocks nearby to attract them. The group did as Kang Sam said and spread some lines that would make noise when the monsters appeared. Chan-woo was still confused, wondering who would bring such expensive food to a hunt, and worse, use it in a strategy. To him, Kang Sam seemed quite eccentric. He still wasn't sure if he could trust Kang Sam. While Chan-woo was filled with doubts, the protagonist saw a bell on one of the lines sway. That was a sign that the monsters had arrived. As the giant ants emerged from behind some rocks, Kang Sam raised his shield. His other companions were hidden behind rocks, like him, waiting for the right moment. The ants made their way to the honey and began to eat it, emitting hissing sounds. It was then that Kang Sam stealthily appeared behind one of them with his sword raised. As his defense increased due to the number of enemies, the protagonist thrust his sword into one of the ants, hitting it squarely. Immediately, the other ants noticed him and leaped onto him. Kang Sam began to swing his sword, safely defeating another monster. The habitat ants possessed sharp teeth, and with such fangs, one of them attacked the protagonist's face. Kang Sam ended up falling to the ground and quickly rolled to escape the monster's grip. Rising again, he counterattacked with an upward swing of his sword. Seeing how Kang Sam began to deal with the enemies, Han Biol, the group's ranger, sprang into action, taking his bow. The arrows he launched accurately hit some other ants, preventing them from advancing against the tanker on the front line. However, one of the arrows wasn't so precise and, instead of hitting an ant, fell in front of the protagonist, startling him. The ant that wasn't hit by the attack shrieked ferociously, but before it could do more than that, an attack separated its halves. This time, Young Chan-woo, the sub-tanker, acted quickly, effectively joining the combat. Jung Chan-woo quickly analyzed Kang Sam and Han Biol, who was being scolded by the former. Both seemed well, and it was impressive that they could see even with the fog. What worried Chan-woo was the fact that Woo-bin, the mage, wasn't doing anything. When the group finished defeating the first horde of ants, they felt a tremor in the ground, combined with a loud noise. Kang Sam's defense and health regeneration immediately rose to 18% due to his skill, which attested to the number of monsters. The new ant horde marched quickly, descending the mountain. However, due to the low visibility and loud noise, no one in the group could tell where the monsters were coming from. Afraid of what might happen, Woo-bin held his staff while trembling with fear. The ants descending the hill found their first target. Chan-woo looked back when he heard a scream of fear. The mage had been thrown to the ground by one of the ants, which was on top of him. It tried to grab him with its fangs, which were as large as clenched fists. Chan-woo couldn't react in time and could only wonder how the mage continued to be a liability. However, while he merely watched, Kang Sam moved quickly, pushing the ant away with a kick. Gnashing its teeth, another ant quickly approached and managed to bite Kang Sam's arm. However, the ant's teeth didn't even cause a scratch. With the iron body skill, a partial strengthening was applied to the protagonist's arm. After its first attack, that ant also met its end. Having defeated 2 monsters in a row, the protagonist looked around with a serious expression. He had attracted the ants' attention with his actions and with his aggro skill, ending up surrounded by them. Taking control of the monsters, the battle progressed smoothly under Kang Sam's dominance. After defeating several monsters, the ranger Han Byul revealed how incredulous he was. Remembering that it had been about a month since Kang Sam's E-rank qualification exam, he wondered how the young man had evolved so much. Chan Woo was also surprised and soon asked the protagonist, "Mr. Kang Sam, are you really an E-rank? With that level, I wouldn't doubt it if you said you were D-rank." Han Byul, in silence, immediately agreed with those words. Curious and hoping to become stronger, Han Byul asked Kang Sam's secret, if he had gone to any training center. The protagonist remained silent, remembering what had transpired within the isolation caused by Asmoon. The protagonist had gone through complete exhaustion. He had also been hit by an infinity of arrows, and finally, had almost lost count of how many days he had stayed inside. Trembling while trying to hide the truth, the protagonist faked a smile. "Well, I just trained hard. What do you think I would have done?" "Ha ha ha!" Whispering to Han Byul, the protagonist revealed something. "Still, I think this confusion was caused by me. Shouldn't we tell the group members?" Before he could say anything else, they saw young Chan Woo become tremendously animated and rely on Kang Sam. So what if something unexpected happens? There's no reason not to trust Mr. Kang Sam in times like this. The protagonist slightly bowed his head in thanks. Chan Woo showered praise on the first true tank he had ever encountered. However, when he looked to the side, his expression was no longer so cheerful. He glared furiously at the mage. Why is the mage doing absolutely nothing the entire time? The protagonist realized that Chan Woo's words were true. While Han Byul and he were dealing with the ants, Chan Woo had moved to the rear, engaging enemies that had passed them. But during all this time, the mage hadn't taken a single step towards the battlefield. Chan Woo grew increasingly irritated. "If you can't handle enemies, why do you come to the battlefield?" Han Byul quickly intervened to prevent a fight. Interjecting, Han Byul offered to explain on Woo Bin's behalf. As he was about to explain something, a powerful tremor shook the ground. The protagonist quickly realized his bad luck was starting to manifest again. A new variable had emerged to bring him misfortune as the ground beneath their feet collapsed. A new difficulty and judgment had arisen. The presence of the villain had increased the invasion's difficulty. Landing on hard ground after some time, Kang Sam gritted his teeth. His companions looked around and soon one of them shouted, "This isn't good! We fell into the ant nest! The soldier ants will attack soon!" At that moment, Kang Sam's bonus defense and regeneration percentage began to climb, quickly reaching higher numbers than in the previous battle. Young Chan Woo clutched his head, terrified of what they were about to face. As they cursed their bad luck, a soldier ant, a D-rank monster, appeared. The protagonist gritted his teeth at the sight of the first monster, nearly 2 meters tall. An ant nest like this, with both soldier and worker ants, should have been a C-rank area. Furious, he blamed Asmoon for the sudden increase in difficulty. The moment they fell into the ant nest, Woo Bin began to gasp heavily, as if he'd run out of air. Desperate, Han Byul rushed to his friend's side. "Woo Bin, are you okay?" The protagonist also approached, asking if Woo Bin was hurt. Han Byul realized he couldn't hide the truth much longer. Woo Bin was traumatized when he was nearly hit by a monster as a child, so sometimes he doesn't feel well, but he'll get better soon. Hearing the story, Chan Woo was surprised and quickly scolded both of them. "You brought someone like that to this raid? Are you crazy?" Everyone looked at Chan Woo but couldn't say anything. He was right. The situation was already insane enough, but now, inside an ant nest, the mage couldn't even breathe from fear. The protagonist's effective defense and health regeneration reached 35% at that moment. Chan Woo, who hadn't yet noticed the approaching monsters, yelled at Han Byul, "If we all die inside this den, will you take responsibility?" The protagonist quickly grabbed Chan Woo, trying to make him calm down and compose himself. Young Chan Woo was clearly panicking. Although young, he had participated in over 30 raids in recent months. His skill was solid, but if he panicked, it would be useless. The protagonist tried to calm him, revealing the reason behind his fear. "You're like this because you've never cleared a dungeon higher than your rank before. But unlike you, I've completed hundreds of dungeons like this. If you can't believe in yourself, then trust me and fight." Next, the protagonist began to explain their strategy. It didn't matter how many ants there were. They couldn't advance if there were no tunnels. Kang Sam wanted to deal with 3 nearby tunnels alone, leaving the last one for Chan Woo. Upon hearing that he only had to face monsters coming from one tunnel, Chan Woo confirmed he would try. The protagonist then gave instructions to Han Byul, telling him to deal with the ants coming from a small tunnel once Woo Bin recovered. Determined to buy time for the group, Kang Sam headed for the 3 tunnels positioned side by side. Despite his concern, his gaze was serious. There would be 35 ants to face, and he wanted to deal with all of them to overcome the difficulty, as always. Hoping not all of them were soldier ants, the protagonist soon encountered the first giant ant. Using the Guardian's shield skill, Kang Sam withstood the charge of the first ant, placing his shield between them. With brutal force, he was pushed back due to the weight and speed of the attack. Quickly, he advanced against the enemy, wanting to defeat it before others appeared. Using a sharpening scroll, his sword penetrated the ant's exoskeleton. The second star of the otherworldly art was activated, and a faint crimson aura enveloped his body as he continued his attacks. The ant roared furiously, showing it hadn't been defeated yet. Although he had great defensive power, Kang Sam found himself pressured because his attack was still at a base level. That's why he needed to raise his stats with the shadow art. Stepping heavily on the soldier ant, the protagonist finally defeated it. Behind her, 2 other ants, this time worker ants, appeared. The protagonist swung his sword and returned to battle. The ants were hit quickly, even before they realized the attack. Little by little, the bonus defense and health regeneration provided by Kang Sam's skill began to decrease. On the other hand, with the effect of the otherworldly art, his attack power constantly improved. However, new ants, including soldiers, began to emerge. Kang Sam didn't care about the number. He advanced against all of them at once. As his defense and regeneration decreased because the monsters were defeated, his attack increased. The protagonist's attacks did not cease, and soon hit another ant, spilling its green acid. The number of emerging monsters showed the protagonist that several of them had bypassed his defense. Swinging his sword and quickly dealing with the monster attacking him, the protagonist ran among the enemies while raising his shield. Many ants had already circled the battlefield and began to climb the walls, to then jump on Kang Sam. On the other side, Chan-woo desperately swung his axe, dealing with the monsters as best he could. His attacks were brutal and spared no energy. However, this led to a lapse in his guard. A large soldier ant managed to break through his defense and bit his arm. Chan-woo gritted his teeth at the sight of the monster that had sneakily attacked him. Looking up, he saw some loose rocks at the cave's entrance. Acting quickly, he struck the rocks with his axe, causing them to collapse. In seconds, enormous stones fell on the ant, immobilizing it permanently. Having defeated the largest of those ants, Chan-woo gritted his teeth and held his shoulder with his hand. The pain was so intense that he could no longer fight. Furthermore, there were so many monsters that, even using his abilities, he wouldn't be able to contain them. However, suddenly, a hand touched his wound and an energy overflowed onto his shoulder. Surprised, Chan-woo saw the aura of recovery magic being used on his injury. While his mind wandered, the protagonist tried to rouse him while healing him. "Come on, react! Do you want to die here?" Chan-woo couldn't believe that Kang Sam was helping him, even though he was completely exhausted and injured. "Why are you using healing magic on me? Use it on yourself first." In this trial, Kang Sam had received a mission, and he would not fail to fulfill it. Even with Chan-woo's protests, the protagonist continued to heal him. As soon as the healing was complete, Chan-woo raised his axe to attack the monsters again. Tired, the protagonist fell to his knees. Now that he had healed Chan-woo, he couldn't cast the aura of recovery on himself. However, before he could even try to heal himself, worker ants attacked him. Acting quickly, he extended his sword to strike one of them. Through the tunnels he had neglected to take care of Chan-woo, various ants continued to emerge, preventing the number of enemies from decreasing. Even with healing available to the group, the situation became increasingly catastrophic. At that rate, everyone's stamina would soon run out. One thing hammered in Kang Sam's mind: how many more ants are there through those tunnels? While Chan-woo and Kang Sam risked their lives dealing with the monsters, Woo Bin trembled in a corner, clutching his staff. Traumatized, the boy wondered, "Why does this always happen to me?" Han Byul also joined the battle, using his arrows to prevent the ants from advancing towards his friend. Han Byul kept yelling, Woo Bin, please recover." However, the boy frustrated everyone when he just continued to mumble, refusing to believe the situation was real. Han Byul finally got angry with his friend and grabbed him by the collar. "Hey, you bastard! Can't you see what's happening? They're both fighting for their lives, so why can't you do anything? If you don't want to live anymore, don't drag others down with you. Don't involve people in your trauma." Woo Bin sighed heavily after being shaken by Han Byul several times. Little by little, he began to recall his friend's excitement just over a month ago. After the promotion test day, Han Byul had rushed to his friend to tell him what he'd seen. "During the test, the tanker took the blow for his teammate in danger. I couldn't believe I saw it with my own eyes." Woo Bin, wearing hospital clothes, just listened to what his friend said. Hanbiol had the idea that if they formed a team with someone so incredible, his friend's trauma might begin to heal. Confronted with the memory, Wu Bin recalled the past. He was about 5 years old. His mother pulled him by the arm as they fled a portal. Wu Bin's short legs gave out, and he ended up falling to the ground. His mother rushed back to get him, trying to give him the courage to run again. She pulled him by the arm, helping him up, but before she could, something enormous hit her, splattering her son's face with blood. From that day on, the trauma took root. Now, in the ant habitat, with his friend trying to give him strength, Wu Bin bit his lips and made a decision. With a heavy sigh, he replied, "I'll try, somehow." Wu Bin held his staff and closed his eyes, trying to concentrate. The young man had changed his mindset. He didn't want anyone else to suffer because of him. Little by little, an energy began to overflow from Wu Bin, flowing into the staff in his hands. While Chan Wu and Kang Sam continued to fight, the spell Wu Bin tried to cast failed several times. With his eyes closed, he frowned, trying to focus as much as possible. Even with the battle raging around him, Wu Bin tried to ignore all sounds. When the power finally overflowed in his body, he slowly opened his eyes. A large warrior ant was already on top of Kang Sam, pinning him to the ground. At that moment, a red aura surged around Wu Bin. The aura transformed into fire, creating a large whirlwind of flames around his body. The whirlwind took shape, becoming a salamander that rapidly crawled, demonstrating the strength of the flames. When they least expected it, the salamander leaped onto the giant ants, entering the battle. Chan Wu felt a powerful fire energy approaching and threw himself to the ground, dodging the salamander that advanced without a defined aim. Chan Wu was completely shocked, to the point that his face couldn't express any reaction. Sitting on the ground, Kang Sam had the same response, merely watching the flames consume the ant nest. When the protagonist looked back, he saw the mage, once tormented by trauma, becoming the key to overcoming that ordeal. As Wu Bin used his magic without hesitation, he heard someone call his name. The protagonist quickly instructed him, "Make those tunnels collapse. It's the only way to stop the ants." From the tunnels Kang Sam had mentioned, ants continued to emerge ceaselessly. Fire magic enveloped Wu Bin, who, more focused than ever, commanded it. Fireballs rained down on the ants, who didn't even have a chance to react. Soon, that ant nest turned into a fiery den, and the smell of burnt ants spread everywhere. The protagonist placed his hand on the ground, and as the ants burned, used the skill that attracted the monster's aggro. As soon as he activated the technique, the ants that had passed through the fire and were heading to attack Wu Bin stopped. They began to focus on Kang Sam's presence and attacked him fiercely. Kang Sam didn't stay still and used his sword to eliminate the ants already weakened by the flames, joining Wu Bin in battle. Wu Bin was focused on gathering his flames and, after a tremendous effort, managed to cause a large explosion in the tunnels behind the protagonist. Upon seeing the size of that explosion, even Kang Sam was impressed. That magic had been insanely powerful. However, it was so strong that it caused several rocks to detach from the ceiling. If they didn't run, everyone would be hit by the collapse. Kang Sam ran as fast as he could and placed the unconscious Chan Wu on his shoulders. Han Biol hastily called him to leave the ant nest. Car-sized rocks slid down the walls, falling without anything to stop them. After the collapse, only a few burnt ants remained. In a safe corner, Chan Wu sat leaning against the wall, while Kang Sam cast his healing magic to save him. Even injured, the protagonist still helped others who were also in need. After being healed, Chan Wu began to argue with Kang Sam. "Hey, we just met! Why do you keep healing me instead of healing yourself first? There's a limit to how good someone can be." Despite feigning humility and saying he could heal himself later, the protagonist was only focused on the reward. Approaching, the exhausted Wu Bin apologized for not casting healing spells on anyone. The protagonist reassured him, stating that it was already impressive that Wu Bin could still walk after casting such a powerful spell. While letting out a few laughs, Kang Sam ultimately fainted. When the protagonist awoke, Asmoon greeted him in an empty place with infinite white walls. He was furious to see her again, but Asmoon cut straight to the chase. "You passed the 6th trial and received your reward." The protagonist was surprised he had forgotten about the trial. Checking his stats, he noticed that all of them had increased by 5 points. To gain just 1 point in any of them normally required a lot of time and effort. Gaining 15 points in total because of a single trial was incredible. However, remembering something, he questioned Asmoon. Shouldn't trials be something a person faces alone? Why were other people dragged in with me? I wouldn't have passed it alone. If Wu Bin hadn't awakened his power, we would all have died. Tired of the complaints, Asmoon dismissively cleaned her ear. When Kang Sam finally stopped talking, she replied, "The judgments reflect complex variables, like how the mage was included in your group. Do you think the judgments will gently help you grow? Then you've got it all wrong." With a provocative look and a mocking smile, Asmoon approached Kang Sam. "Did you think the difficulty would be lower if you were alone? No? In the end, facing the trials and dragging others into them is just a result of your karma. So all you need to do is shut up and focus on fulfilling the judgments that appear." Stroking Kang Sam's hair, she instructed him once more before quickly moving away. The woman, powerful to the point of being indecipherable, wore light clothing and maintained a carefree attitude, even while ordering Kang Sam around. "If you understand, then wake up. Stop sleeping." Just as she commanded, the protagonist returned to reality, surprising everyone who, upon seeing him awaken, became extremely happy. Scratching his head, he asked if he had fainted, as he had dreamt of something terrible. Confused, Kang Sam questioned why they were still in the ant nest. Han Byul looked up. "Well, we couldn't get out. We're about 10 meters deep. We tried to climb the walls, but the cave's angle doesn't help. We can't climb them." Chan Wu remained with the group, waiting for Kang Sam to wake up to hear what he thought they could do. Smiling hopefully, Han Byul asked, "Don't you have jump scrolls or something?" Seeing the question, Chan Wu grumbled, asking who would carry something so useless. However, the protagonist replied something that surprised them. "Actually, I have 4 of them." Han Byul wanted to know why he carried something so useless, and the answer was exactly what they expected. "I always prepare to face misfortunes." Upon seeing how Kang Sam carried random scrolls and even some treats, Chan Wu couldn't help but think to himself that this person was seriously strange. The 4 gathered, and upon activating the jump scroll, a trampoline appeared. They began to jump together until they were launched out of the ant nest. After that, the trampoline, which had only one use, disappeared. Kang Sam's group reported the results of the raid and proceeded to the Hunter Management Division. The division determined that there was an error in the information about the hunting ground and granted them free access to sea level and lower raids, as well as a set of emergency potions. Han Byul, Yan Wu Bin, and Young Chan Wu decided not to make the incident a problem, and thus the matter was closed. The protagonist sighed, a worried expression on his face. He thought that if this continued to happen, the management team would eventually face problems, and he might even be banned. Without realizing it, someone grabbed his hand. He looked confused at the person and discovered it was Wu Bin. The young man bowed before him, speaking confidently. "Mr. Kang Sam, could you take me on your next raid? I'm not saying I want to form a team, but I want to work hard to be truly useful to the group. That's what I wanted to say." Seeing the young man volunteer even after everything that had happened, the protagonist was satisfied. Clutching Wu Bin's hand, he replied, "We're already a team, aren't we?" Kang Sam didn't even notice that the others found his dialect, which tended to surface in awkward situations, strange, and he ended up walking away. But before he left, Chan Wu called out to him too. "Mr. Kang Sam, you said you weren't going to join any management, didn't you?" At the question, the protagonist realized Chan Wu was right, and so after exchanging contact information, they all said their goodbyes. As he walked away, Chan Wu called someone and started chatting animatedly. At the Cheonsong Management Center, made up of enormous buildings, a monotonous conversation was taking place. After taking a call, a woman sighed heavily, prompting concern from her colleague beside her. "What kind of call makes you sigh like that?" Frowning, she revealed the content of the call. It was Chan Wu. He suddenly said we needed to recruit an E-rank hunter. The other agent was surprised to hear this. She didn't understand why they'd recruit an E-rank hunter, and immediately suspected some kind of personal favoritism. The woman who had received the call started researching Kang Sam and discovered that he had been an F rank for a long time until just a few months ago. It was then that she remembered Chan Wu's words. "You can't judge someone by superficial numbers. He's better than any other hunter I've ever seen." Although she found fulfilling such a request disagreeable, she preferred to avoid the drama Chan Wu would cause later. Thus, she added Kang Sam's name to the recruitment and identified him as a special recommendation made by Chan Wu, just to absolve herself of responsibility. Unexpectedly, the person who received the recruitment list was an acquaintance of Kang Sam, his friend Min Yuk. Upon seeing the name on the list, he was surprised. A curious man appeared next to Min Yuk and asked who this Kang Sam was, as he had heard the name before. Min Yuk tried to change the focus of the conversation, but the fact that an E rank had received a special recommendation caught the senior's attention, who took the list of names. People passing by saw Min Yuk and mocked him. "Are you causing trouble again? Go get some rest." The senior ignored the taunts and focused on what was important. "This guy, he's the one you tried to recruit and failed, isn't he?" Not even half a year has passed and his name is already on the recommendations list. He must be special. Remembering how Minhyuk had lost the chance to recruit him, the senior ridiculed him. If he ends up being recruited and passes the screening, it will be clear that you have no talent as a scout. Back then, you couldn't even talk back and you messed everything up. In the end, Minhyuk was left alone, holding the list. Angrily, he began to crumple the papers until he turned them into a ball. When night fell, Kang Sam went to a playground and used the outdoor gym for training. After performing 40 pull-ups, the protagonist stopped to rest. As soon as he let go of the bar, he received a notification on his phone. Upon checking, he saw that it was just another message informing him about a new phenomenon. Another leak had occurred. The protagonist read the information and discovered it was again in Wangsimni. It was only an E-rank leak, but the fact that it was recurring was concerning. He wondered if he would have to face those leak links if he decided to become a ranger. For E-rank leaks, usually only soldiers were dispatched. The only thing Kang Sam wished for was that all who answered the call would be safe. Curiously, in the truck that had been sent to respond to the incident was Kim Chun-shik. As soon as the army truck arrived at the scene, the soldiers quickly dismounted. The lieutenant began to shout upon their arrival. Your mission is to eliminate the monsters in the area and rescue civilians. The link is E-rank, so gnolls should appear. They're not overly dangerous monsters, so you don't need to worry. Still, don't let your guard down. If you do, a comrade might get caught. Hearing the instructions, the soldiers agreed in unison. They quickly began to advance, creating a rain of fire attacks. The gnolls, humanoid monsters with wolf-like features, tried to advance but were stopped by the gunfire. Many were quickly defeated. Soon after the first skirmish, the soldiers continued to advance. To search for civilians, a group entered a building with destroyed walls and an abandoned appearance. Kim Chun-shik disliked that mission. Because of events months earlier, he had grown to hate gnolls. As the group moved through the rubble, they were watched by the monsters, who remained silent. It was then that a slab on the upper floor swayed, alerting them to the enemy's presence. The gnolls jumped on the soldiers, who raised their weapons. An intense combat ensued. With their great firepower, the soldiers managed to contain the monsters. However, in the middle of the fight, something caught their attention. One of the slabs on the upper floors began to sway, and before they knew it, the ceiling collapsed. From behind the falling debris, a fierce gnoll rushed towards one of the soldiers. One of them managed to protect himself from the falling slab, but he heard a cry for help. The gnoll had jumped on one of the soldiers, who was using his weapon to prevent the fangs from hitting him. The soldier in danger was none other than Kim Chun-shik. The sharp fangs began to grind and twist the weapon's metal, but with the help of the other soldiers, Chun-shik survived. After being saved, he was pulled up by his comrades. The gnoll had fallen on him, and upon realizing it, Chun-shik complained, "I hate gnolls, I really hate them." After everyone exited the building, the lieutenant gave them another order. "Squad mates, search the area thoroughly. If you spot a group of gnolls, respond immediately." The soldiers obeyed the order. Chun-shik was one of them and proceeded in a pair down a destroyed street. During the walk, Chun-shik saw his partner stop and quickly asked if anything was wrong. Soldier Park looked at him. "Chun-shik, I think I need to leave the formation." Chun-shik was surprised, but listened to the story. "I received a message from my brother. He said everyone was fleeing to the shelters, but his location doesn't show him in one. He's definitely in danger." Chun-shik recommended that his partner report to the commander so that troops from another battalion could help, but Park retorted, "There isn't a company operating in that area. This is the 3rd Company's sector, but if we don't clear our zone first, their operation will be delayed." Chun-shik wanted to argue, but Park gave him no room. With a serious look, he pleaded, "Just this once, please. You have your grandmother, who is more precious than your own life, don't you? If I come back alive, I swear I'll reward you properly." However, the serious Chun-shik didn't want to let his friend go. "That's not the problem. You're saying you want to enter a mission zone alone. That's too risky." Park knew exactly how dangerous it was to go alone, but he had to do it for his brother. Having no other choice, Park left Chun-shik and ran. Making a decision, Chun-shik ran after him, accompanying him. Seeing Chun-shik say he would go along, Park was surprised. "What kind of nonsense are you saying? You have to go back, it's too dangerous, you know that?" However, Chun-shik reminded him of something they were taught to follow. "A squad is one body, isn't it? Wherever you go, I will go too." Chun-shik followed Park because in his mind, if Kang Sam were in his place, he would do the same. Park didn't believe Chun-shik was willing to do this, but he couldn't do anything but accept. Entering the area where there were numerous gnolls, Park swore, "If we manage to come back alive after this mission, you won't be my junior anymore, you'll be my brother." In an area surrounded by countless gnolls, the group hid under some rubble. They held hands, trying their best to make no noise to avoid alerting the monsters. Chun-sik had distributed a rope around the area, and as soon as he finished, informed Park that the preparation was complete. Park raised his hand, signaling Chun-sik to stop. He pointed ahead, indicating that the location of his brother's tracker was where numerous gnolls were gathered. Park silently pleaded for his brother to still be alive, and this moved Chun-sik. Chun-sik quickly offered an idea. "Soldier Park, I'll draw them away. Use that time to rescue your brother." Park couldn't believe Chun-sik was willing to do something so risky, but Chun-sik's gaze was serious and determined. Trusting his partner, Park said, "I'm not as skilled in rescue missions as you are. So, you're the one who has to do it. Your sister will feel safer that way." Park gritted his teeth at Chun-sik's decision, but couldn't stop him from helping. The gnolls drooled hungrily over the rubble that hid the group of survivors. It was at that moment that the sound of a gunshot echoed down the street, immediately alerting the monsters. Seeing a dark silhouette, the gnolls advanced toward it. Chun-sik held his weapon, ready to confront all the monsters, drawing them away so Park could act. He faced the monsters head-on until all of them were drawn away. As they began to run towards him, Chun-sik sprinted to another location, making the monsters follow him. This allowed Park to get behind the monsters and proceed to the rubble area. The people hidden beneath the debris trembled with fear until sunlight illuminated them as one of the pieces of rubble was moved aside. From above, a voice shouted, "Are you all right? We've come to rescue you." Through the opening he created, Park asked everyone to start coming out, one by one. A woman among those people recognized Park upon seeing him. Their eyes met, and tears streamed from her eyes as she saw her brother and her hero. Being pursued by the monsters, Kim Chun-sik tried to flee any way he could. Behind him, the monsters ran with heavy footsteps, clinging to the walls of the buildings with their sharp claws. Even after Chun-sik hit them, they had not fallen. They hadn't even slowed their pace. Deciding to confront them once more, Kim Chun-sik pointed his machine gun, firing at the monsters, who dodged with agility despite their enormous bodies. With gritted teeth, Kim Chun-sik realized it was no use staying there. He quickly resumed his run, crossing the street where debris was scattered on both sides. His hurried steps mingled with beads of sweat. As soon as he had run a certain distance, Kim Chun-sik pulled a detonator. The device was connected to the central unit, which began to charge. Kim Chun-sik ran as fast as possible. The monsters had already caught up to him, with only a few meters separating them from their delicious fleeing prey. At that moment, the device exploded and pieces of debris flew at the monsters. Kim Chun-sik was excited to hear the explosion, but he quickly realized it had only served to further infuriate the creatures. The ferocious beasts lunged at Kim Chun-sik on all fours, their sharp teeth focused on capturing the flesh of their prey. Kim Chun-sik found himself cornered. Unexpectedly, one of the beasts lifted a car and threw it in front of Kim Chun-sik, blocking his remaining escape route. With the path blocked, Kim Chun-sik saw the monster approach, raise one of its hands, and aim its sharp claws at him in a move that would end his life. At the last instant, something pierced the monster's hand, interrupting the attack. It looked in the direction the shot had come from. In the same second, another attack fell upon the monster. Kim Chun-sik was shocked to be saved. From the top of a building was Corporal Park. It was he who had fired the shots that saved Kim Chun-sik after having rescued his sister. Not letting him waste any time, Corporal Park shouted, "Run, Chun-sik! My sister and the others have been rescued safely." Seeing and hearing Corporal Park, Kim Chun-sik managed an excited smile. While more and more monsters were being struck down, Kim Chun-sik tried to run, but one of them had escaped and grabbed him, throwing him against the wall. Chun-sik screamed in pain, startling Corporal Park. Coughing, Chun-sik fell to the ground. The monster raised its sharp claws and its blow fell mercilessly. Gritting his teeth, Corporal Park cursed those monster bastards. However, he couldn't even save Kim Chun-sik. His view was being blocked by the other monsters. Corporal Park hurriedly went down the stairs, looking for a better angle from another floor. Kim Chun-sik's mind became increasingly hazy. He felt that this would be his end. He had not managed to be like Corporal Park. Kim Chun-sik was lifted by one of the monsters like a toy in a child's hands. His gaze was weak. Strength had left Chun-sik's body. Desperately, Corporal Park fired all the ammunition he had left, drawing the monster's attention and irritation. Kim Chun-sik, however, knew it was already too late. As his last act, he took one final detonator, intending to be useful at least one last time. Corporal Park realized Kim Chun-sik's intentions and screamed, "Don't do it!" Kim Chun-sik's finger moved slowly toward the button. He was determined not to allow both himself and Corporal Park to perish. To save at least the life of his battle companion, he was willing to sacrifice himself. At that moment, a glow of light appeared before Kim Chun-sik, along with a notification, "The awakening has enhanced your physical abilities. All wounds suffered before the awakening are completely healed." A glow enveloped Kim Chun-sik's body, which was still being held up by the monster. The sudden energy left the creature confused, but it soon tried to react, only to be interrupted when Kim Chun-sik moved a dagger and drove it into the monster's hand, forcing it to let go. The monster roared in pain as Kim Chun-sik fell to the ground, but the creature did not intend to let him escape. Its sharp claws lunged in an instant in a fierce attack. Kim Chun-sik, with his enhanced physical abilities, managed to easily dodge the monster's swipe. With confidence, he moved forward, firmly holding the dagger. Kim Chun-sik's eyes were steady, showing his determination to face it. Moving quickly to the side of the monster's body, Kim Chun-sik attacked with the dagger, making the creature fall, roaring in pain. Taking advantage of the opening that appeared, Kim Chun-sik jumped onto the monster, ready to finish it. His gaze turned grim as he leaped toward the creature. Corporal Park was shocked to realize that suddenly, all the gnolls were running toward Kim Chun-sik, as if they no longer saw Park as a threat. At that moment, the sounds of tires and a truck engine pierced the battlefield. Soldiers climbed down from the back of the vehicle, joining the fight. Seeing the armed men, Corporal Park shouted hurriedly, "We can't shoot! Corporal Kim Chun-sik is still there!" With a terrifyingly firm voice, the squad captain roared, "Do you know what mistake you just made? I gave a clear order. You should be heading to Sangwon Simni right now, but you abandoned your posts and came here without permission. What did you think you were doing?" Corporal Park tried to take all the blame, rushing, "Kim Chun-sik did nothing wrong. He only followed my orders, so please." The captain ignored him and shouted, "Ready! Assume firing positions!" The soldiers immediately lined up side by side, awaiting the order to begin the attack. People on the street constantly listened to the news. 4 days ago, monsters had appeared in Wangsimni. In that month alone, 7 link phenomena had occurred, causing disturbances in city life. Because of this, shelters had been established throughout the Gangnam district so that everyone could find help within a maximum of 5 minutes. In other places, however, including Gangseo, the shelters were further apart, about a 30-minute walk away. The government denied accusations that the unbalanced distribution of shelters caused higher casualties, but public pressure continued. Just as strong as public opinion was Kim Chun-sik's training. As he ran alongside his partner, the squad leader continued to roar, "You aren't running hard enough! Do you need another 100 laps to understand?" Gasping with exhaustion, he and Corporal Park forced themselves to respond. The commander watched them run and shouted, "No one here is without a story. If your family members were in danger, anyone would go crazy. If you abandon your post, people could be hurt because they weren't protected. Your selfish decision can put your comrades in danger, do you understand?" The pair of soldiers shouted even louder in response. "Yes, sir!" Seeing the commander disciplining the troops, a man in a suit approached. The commander was surprised and quickly offered a salute. "Sir!" Continuing to run, Kim Chun-sik encouraged Corporal Park not to stop. Despite expecting to be punished, the corporal apologized to Kim Chun-sik. Smiling, Chun-sik reassured him, "Just don't forget to call me senior." The response eased the weight of the guilt Corporal Park felt. As the two ran, they were interrupted when someone called out to them. Going up the stairs, they were surprised to see the man in the suit. The battalion commander stared them down from head to toe. Seeing that person gave Kim Chun-sik the feeling that the punishment wouldn't end with just a few laps carrying gear. The man before them might even throw them into military prison. Unexpectedly, the battalion commander embraced them. "I am proud to have soldiers like you in my battalion." He smiled and explained, "Military law is sacred, but sometimes exceptions must be applied. When families are in danger, anyone would give up everything to rescue them." He then asked the two soldiers, "Why do we enlist? Is it not to protect our families?" Thus, Corporal Park and Kim Chun-sik were ordered to stop running and rest. The battalion commander called for the company commander, as they needed to grant interviews. As soon as they stopped running, the pair collapsed onto the ground in exhaustion. Corporal Park didn't know exactly what had just happened, but he felt relief. His sweat-covered face showed he couldn't have lasted much longer. Remembering the battle, Corporal Park voiced his concern. "If you pull the pin on a grenade and want to say goodbye alone again, I really will get my revenge on you." Kim Chun-sik smiled at his comrade's concern. While resting on the ground, Corporal Park was the first to get up. "Let's head inside." Before getting up, Kim Chun-sik questioned him, "When are you going to call me senior?" In the shower, Kim Chun-sik looked at his information and was surprised. Although his stats were still low, they had increased considerably. Running while carrying the equipment hadn't been difficult for him, to the point where he had to fake exhaustion. Kim Chun-sik had already given up on becoming a hunter, so he wondered why this change had only happened at that moment. While Kim Chun-sik showered, the company captain accompanied the battalion commander and asked doubtfully, "Why didn't don't you punish the soldiers according to military law? The battalion commander replied coldly, do you want to be promoted? The media has gone crazy because of that incident. They are dying to turn those two into heroes. If you don't take advantage of the situation, people will call you an idiot. The battalion commander gave the company captain a lesson he should keep in mind. Sometime later, the two headed to a meeting room decorated with a traditional theme. As soon as they entered, they encountered someone writing a story about them and the two new heroes. Reporter Kim Min-young was there to receive them. At the same time, at the Hunter Management Division, hurried movements were taking place. A link incident had just been reported in a rank D hunting area, and a rescue team was being requested. On the information panel, it was confirmed that a team of 5 people was in danger. Upon entering an orc field, they had encountered more monsters than usual. Since the rescue request, calls for the rangers to mobilize were being made. Kang-san, who was still recovering, woke up to a call. Do I have to go now? Kim Myungmin encouraged him to participate. Just go for a test. It's a rank D race field, so the danger level isn't high. Kang-san got out of bed and prepared himself, excited to participate. In an unknown area, a woman prepared a camera. Speaking to the recording, she said, "Honey, if you are seeing this, it means I have left this world. I'm sorry for disappearing so suddenly. Don't be sad. There is an account with emergency reserves, and the details are on the last page of the Little Prince book." As she recorded what could be her farewell, a bald man approached. "What are you doing?" Quickly hiding the phone, she replied heatedly, "I'm making my will." The man was confused by the timing, especially remembering she didn't even have a husband. "Why are you writing a will for your husband if you don't even have one?" While the two argued, another person sitting on crates ignored them. With his head down, he let his long hair cover his face until he couldn't stand the noise anymore and asked for silence. Putting the argument aside, the bald man asked, "Are you sure? That guy is a rank E rookie." The woman, gritting her teeth, replied, "His rank is one thing, but he came as a mercenary. He clearly wants money." It made her wonder why the team leader liked that rookie so much. He was the first recruit in years. The bald man knew the team leader wouldn't recruit just anyone, but the man with his head down stated coldly, "Even if he is the team leader's recommendation, if I don't like him, he will become a target to be removed." Both the bald man and the woman quickly grabbed handheld fans, trying to cool down the atmosphere. Kang-san arrived at dusk and bowed to introduce himself. "Hello, I am Kang-san. I am rank E and my position is tank. I might not be that good, but I will do my best." The woman who recorded wills led the trio and smiled in response, saying along with the bald man, "We look forward to working with you." Upon reaching the group, the team leader called Yeonsu and Ji-tae and asked Gi-dong to take care of the rookie. The long-haired man was put in charge of accompanying Kang-san. The protagonist looked at him warily and asked, "I've participated in many raids, but it's my first time on a rescue team. Is there anything I need to worry about?" Everyone there was a hunter of at least rank C, people who could earn money and fame with their powers, but had chosen altruistic missions. Kang-san knew he would learn a lot working with them. However, Gi-dong's response was grim. "Until you are about to be eliminated, don't move. Stay quiet. If you become arrogant, I will finish you off myself." The protagonist swallowed hard and replied briefly, "Okay." In a cave, a woman used the remainder of her magic to heal a teammate. On the ground, the injured man asked, "Will the Rangers really come to save us?" She had sent a rescue request, but neither she nor the other injured members knew if they would be saved in time. Outside, dozens of monsters surrounded the area, making the situation terrifying. If we can't warn the Rangers about what is happening, they might throw themselves into danger just to try and rescue us. In Kang-san's mind, the mockery-laden instruction from Asmoon still lingered. "Your job is to shut your mouth and focus on passing the tests given to you." Having barely become a rank E, Kang-san knew the tests would only grow more difficult. It would be necessary to become stronger to endure the challenges, which were bound to get even more arduous. Kang-san's mere existence could put those around him in danger. This time, it was the Rangers. These were people who already carried heavy burdens on their backs, but through them, there was a possibility of finding answers to his difficulties. In a stone desert, stone orcs roared toward the humans. Yeonsu strengthened her own body, taking the lead of the group. The warrior's punch struck the first orc, hurling it against the other monsters like a bowling ball, knocking down pins. On the other side, the monsters were being trampled by Gi-dong, who moved through the air. Vaulting above a group of orcs, he brandished his sharp sword, creating a blast of energy that eliminated them. Despite his muscular build, Ji-tae revealed himself to be a mage. Fire erupted in his fist. The flame attack fell upon a group of stone orcs, drying out their bodies while turning them into ash. Kang-san was in a corner, crouched down, his eyes wide with fear. He had forgotten to look for answers to his problems, as even surviving seemed difficult. Kang-san thought he had been called because the tank slot was open, but he was mistaken. These people didn't even need a tank. However, Kang-san refused to be there merely as a spectator. He wanted to help, at least in some way. Believing that Hunter Kim Young-min had brought him there for a reason, he materialized a sword and stepped out from his hiding place. But in that same second, a blast of fire flew in his direction, forcing Kang-san to dodge and hide again. Jitae, who had nearly hit him, shouted, "Have you gone mad? When someone conjures large-scale magic, if you jump in front, you might get hit too. You're in the way. Get out of the front." Cowering, Kang-san moved back to a corner. Dragging an orc along, Yansu approached him. "I heard you fought a blood orc in your promotion test, but there's a big difference when facing many enemies at once." While tossing the orc into the center of the battlefield, Yansu told him not to get involved and instead to just stay behind them. "Just watching will be enough for you to learn." With a beautiful smile, Yansu instructed Kang-san kindly. Observing the battle, Kang-san realized immediately that these people's stats couldn't even be compared to his. In power, speed, or defense, they lacked nothing. He felt as if he were watching two armies collide. However, thinking of armies, he noticed the orcs were too well coordinated. Someone had to be commanding them. The ring on Kim Young-min's finger suddenly glowed. Noticing the alert, he shouted, "Change of plans! From now on, we advance as fast as possible." All the other team members nodded. But before they could attack, a magic circle appeared, conjured by an unknown being. The magic spread beneath the feet of every hunter, from Kim Young-min to Yansu and Gidong. Even Kang-san and Jitae, who were further away, were affected. Crimson magic circles appeared beneath the orcs, who roared to the heavens as they gained power. Grunting, the orcs that had been struck down returned to life. Even with wounds covering their bodies, they forced themselves up. Kang-san gritted his teeth. The enemy leader had cast a debuff on the hunter team while casting a buff on its monsters. The only one capable of doing such a thing was an orc shaman. This was the real reason people were in danger in a rank D field. Holding a staff shaped like a pickaxe, the orc shaman appeared. It was he who commanded the species' movements, raising the level of the hunting ground. The orc shaman raised one hand, and simultaneously, several orcs with large wooden bows drew their arrows. Kang-san sensed the danger, as did Jitae, who began to conjure a defense. The battle resumed. Countless orcs ran toward Jitae, who blocked them with his large physical frame. Kang-san didn't stay still. He ran toward him, raising a shield with a barrier skill, blocking the arrows fired at the muscular mage. Jitae was surprised by Kang-san's arrival, who quickly warned, "There's an orc shaman. He's applied a debuff to our team." An orc, commanded by the shaman, lunged at Yansu wielding a large hammer. The warrior was fast, leaping at the monster and hitting it with a heavy blow. Jitae extended his hand and, enveloped in golden energy, canceled all negative effects. Kang-san was amazed to witness that magic, realizing just how unbeatable the group was. Even with boss-level monsters appearing unexpectedly and hundreds of orcs entering a berserker state, the team did not waver. However, wishing to go further, Kang-san turned to Jitae. "Hunter Yoon Jitae, you need to cancel the debuff nullification." The request surprised Jitae, but Kang-san showed confidence. "Let's identify the orc shaman's position. How about defeating him with area magic? I'll protect you during the incantation." Jitae agreed to the plan and told Kang-san not to let any attack hit him. Then, Jitae apologized to the team and canceled the debuff nullification. Seeing Jitae follow the plan, even at the cost of making the fight harder for his comrades, Kang-san felt obligated to protect him at all costs. Kang-san charged at two approaching orcs. While Jitae kept his eyes closed, two other orcs fired arrows in his direction. Kang-san managed to get in front in time, brandishing his sword to block the projectiles. In Jitae's hands, air magic was finally conjured. It spun in his palm like a small hurricane. "That's enough, Kang-san. I'm finished." The tornado surged across the battlefield, swallowing the orcs and hurling them into the sky. At the center of the storm, the orc shaman remained, resisting the magic. The attack grew larger and larger, making the damage overwhelming, even as the orc tried to hold its ground. When the last orc fell, Kim Young-min stepped onto one of the corpses and scanned the surroundings. They had successfully rescued the wounded. From a stretcher, a woman thanked them. "I never imagined we would make it out alive." A rescue team member echoed her sentiment. "It was unexpected for us as well. These variables are happening more frequently, so the center is working on countermeasures." In a corner, Kang-san broke into a cold sweat as he listened. He wondered if he was the cause. Assuming Asmoon had orchestrated everything because he had joined the Rangers, a higher-level monster had also appeared during his exam because of him. Kim Young-min, however, blamed the scouting teams. Human error was frequent and could not be ignored. Furthermore, anyone entering a dungeon had to be prepared for the worst. Kim Ma-youngmin's words struck Kang-san hard, revealing the true danger of the Yao profession. On the way home, Kang-san took a bus. It was night, and since the vehicle was packed, he stood for the journey. Kim Ma-youngmin's words persisted in his mind. Watching his own reflection in the bus window, he remembered how bad luck had followed him since birth. People said it trailed him because of a cursed karma from a past life. Since the world had become a chaotic mess, anyone could be thrown into a cruel situation at any moment. Monsters appeared, causing unexpected disasters. Though it was a terrifying reality for others, Kang-san unexpectedly felt a strange sense of comfort. Outside the bus, a car accelerated and pulled up alongside. From the vehicle, someone shouted for Kang-san. The protagonist was surprised to see who was driving, the hunter Yoon Ji-tae. As Kang-san opened the bus window, Ji-tae yelled, "I'm sorry, I was a bit rude earlier. Because of work stress, we are always sensitive about new members." Ji-tae praised Kang-san's performance. "You were great today. Even in an uncomfortable situation, you prioritized finding the missing people above all else. If it weren't for you, rescuing them today would have been impossible." From the bus, Kang-san revealed his thoughts to Ji-tae. He didn't think he was good enough. The battle had made him realize how useless he felt. From the car, Ji-tae replied, "You're right. You might not be that good now, but you will definitely become an incredible ranger." Ji-tae held up his hand, showing 3 fingers. 3 years. You'll have that much time. We'll wait for you, so become stronger and return then. After delivering his message, Ji-tae accelerated, heading down the road and leaving the bus behind. Kang-san watched the car disappear, reflecting on the time Ji-tae had given him. He was so immersed in thought that he was eventually scolded by the driver. "Passenger back there, don't put your head out the window. If you want to talk, just get off." The next day, Kang-san went to a place he hadn't visited in a while, Blacksmith Street. Since the emergence of the otherworld emergencies and monsters, weapon manufacturing had surged. Forges that once produced tools had returned to their roots, once again becoming weaponsmithies. Entering a forge, Kang-san announced his arrival. An old man with large ears recognized him immediately. "Oh, you're alive in spite of everything." The old man called out to someone else. "Mr. Yu, Young San is here." The muscular Yu Jung-young, master smith of the iron forge, stopped his hammering and greeted Kang-san. "Long time no see." Since Kang-san had become a hunter, Yu Jung-young had kindly repaired his items for a low price. Even when he could barely scrape together the money for a rank D longsword, the blacksmith celebrated as if the weapon were for himself. The iron forge was a place that had created and repaired items for over 10 years. It was the shop Kang-san trusted. Arriving at the smithy, Kang-san excitedly revealed he had been promoted to rank E. Yu Jung-young was happy for him. "Your items were breaking non-stop. You worked hard for this." The master smith then asked to examine the items Kang-san was carrying. He pulled out a piece of rank E orc light armor, which increased defense by 10% and had 9% durability, a rank D longsword that granted 15 attack points and had 20 points of durability, and finally, a rank D round shield that increased defense by 18% and had only 5% durability. Observing the data, Yu Jung-young noted the items were in worse shape than usual. Kang-san was worried they were beyond repair, but the master smith reassured him. Suddenly, one of the smiths called for Chief Yu, asking him to look at something. While one of the cats jumped on Kang-san to play, Yu Jung-young followed the man into another room. Kang-san took the time to observe the items he had used for so long. He felt sad that they suffered so much at the hands of such a careless owner. Outside, an argument was breaking out. "It's hard to agree to this. You're going to cut the unit price by 30% all at once?" Yu Jung-young approached the other smiths, questioning what was happening. One of the smiths, irritated, pointed out the problem: the Howling Guild. A woman with glasses, seeing Yu Jung-young, warned immediately, "I'll repeat myself. All the other workshops are lowering their rates. We have done business for a long time, which is why we are still offering higher values. Do you no longer want to do business with us in the future?" Yu Jung-young frowned, surprised by the ultimatum. While playing with one of the cats, Kang-san noticed there were no customers around. Even with the growth of weapon manufacturing, the heavy economy had caused many non-awakened people to enter the field, leading to an oversupply in the market. During the chaos, illegal smiths and defective weapons caused frequent damage until large franchise companies stepped in. The market and product quality stabilized gradually, but small and medium-sized smiths continued to face financial difficulties. Suddenly, the cat Kang-san was playing with was startled by a screwdriver, baring its claws and teeth, which also startled Kang-san. The kitten ran off in a hurry, knocking several items off the shelves as it climbed. Unexpectedly, hammers falling from the shelves hit Kang-san's sword. With the impact, the blade cracked and ended up breaking. Kang-san was shocked to see the sword snapped in half, and at that very moment, the 7th challenge appeared. Use the divine art of darkness to forge a demonic sword within 1 week. Failure will signify your inability to control the art of darkness, and the skill will be revoked, followed by an appropriate judgment. As the mission was delivered, Kang-san's vision distorted, and the image of a man bathed in crimson appeared, clutching the sword that belonged to him and reaching out to grab Kang-san. The crimson-shadowed spirit extended its arm, seizing Kang-san's wrist. The protagonist tried to pull back, but the entity attempted to lure him. "You want it, don't you? To end them all. Then use my power. Come on, hurry!" Gritting his teeth, Kang-san struggled mentally, trying to force the spirit to release its hold. While Kang-san fought within his mind, the woman from the Howling Guild returned to her car and arrogantly made her decision. "If that's how you want it, we have no choice. We will find another source of supplies." Yu Jung-young and the others watched the car speed away, tires screeching. Yu's forging partner scratched her head. "The price of iron and mana stones is rising. How could we possibly lower our rates? Seriously, these corporations think everything will happen exactly the way they want." From where he stood, Yu Jung-young clenched his fist in fury. Glaring at the large building standing beside his small smithy, he stared it down until a few cats approached, rubbing against his legs and meowing, as if they understood his pain and were asking him to calm down. However, the cats were simply hungry, so Yu walked inside with the animals following close behind. Back in the smithy, Yu Jung-young regained his cheerful smile. "Kang-san, you waited, didn't you? I'll make it like new again, so just give me a moment." It was as he spoke that he realized Kang-san was on the ground, the broken sword lying before him. Confused, Jung-young asked what had happened. "The sword was perfect a moment ago. How is it like this now?" Unexpectedly, Kang-san knelt before the blacksmith, pleading for help. "Sir, please help me. I need to forge a sword within a week. You can do it, right? I need this, no matter what." Kang-san's request drove the blacksmith to the edge. "This is ridiculous!" Jung-young exploded in fury, venting all his bottled-up anger. 1 week? Do you have any idea what that means? You, with 0 experience, want to forge a sword in a week? Don't tell me you've become like them too, Kang-san. The old, large-eared smith quickly calmed Chief Yu down and tried to lead Kang-san away to stop him from insisting. Inside the forge, the iron was heated to 1500 degrees. A pneumatic hammer beat constantly against the metal, drawing out the ingot. After the first series of strikes, the iron was reheated to blend high-carbon steel and mild steel into a single material. The large-eared smith took the ingot to be hammered a second time, manually this time. It was heated again and hammered a third time. As he repeated the process, he instructed Kang-san to do the same. Only then would he sand the ingot and sharpen the edge to complete the base of the smith revealed that starting from the very first step would require Chief Yu's permission, but if he just wanted to hammer hot iron for practice, he could do so in a corner of the forge. Kang-san apologized, not wanting to demand too much, and worriedly asked if he had angered Chief Yu. The old smith reassured him, Chief Yu is just tired lately. He didn't know the full story, but remembered Kang-san only had a week. He told the boy to apologize to Yu once he calmed down and to start practicing immediately. Kang-san cursed Asmoon, realizing his social life and relationships would crumble because of her. He remembered he was told to use the power of darkness to create the sword, wondering if he should simply channel magic into his forge. Staring at the pre-stretched ingot, he let crimson energy adhere to his raised hammer and delivered the first strike. While Kang-san attempted to forge, the others moved about, tending to their own tasks. Chief Yu Jung-young was especially focused on sanding a blade, his mind drifting to the past. He remembered when he still had hair, and a young woman had even cried while hugging a newly restored sword. Others were drawn by the fame they had earned for crafting incredible weapons, leading the smithy to its peak when they secured an exclusive contract with the Howling Guild, finally recognized by a big fish. However, that afternoon the representative of the Howling Guild had mocked them. "Masters, anyone can create items today as long as they have mana stones. Who's going to pay for craftsmanship?" Yu's partner had snapped back. "Sure, anyone can make an item, but relying only on mana stones creates equipment with low durability. It turns into trash quickly." The woman didn't budge. "So what? Durability doesn't matter anyway." Between the pressure from the Howling Guild and Kang-san claiming he wanted to forge a sword in a week, Yu Jung-young was tormented by problems all day. When night fell and work ended, the staff was exhausted. As they said their goodbyes, the large-eared smith reminded the master, "That boy, Kang-san, just hammering away won't get him anywhere. Look after him, Mr. Yu." Master Yu scratched his bald head and went to the area where Kang-san was. "Do you plan on hammering all night?" He didn't have high expectations, but his eyes widened at what he saw. Kang-san was enveloped in dark energy as he continued to strike the ingot. The chaotic energy prevented Yu Jung-young from stepping forward. The young man looked broken. Veins were visible across his body. His eyes had turned a deep crimson, and his mind was far away. Inside his own head, Kang-san repeated, "I want to end them all. I want to destroy the monsters that took my father and mother. I want to end the relatives who abandoned me and the people who looked down on me. The people who mocked my parents too. I want to end every last one of them." A shadowy figure loomed over Kang-san, holding his head and driving his thoughts into the darkness. In Kang-san's past life, an old man had picked up iron hammered by him and analyzed it. This is a good sword, perfect for eliminating someone. The Kang-san of that time thought he had succeeded, but the old man put him in his place. "It won't do! Your furious intent is so strong it's overflowing from the blade like a storm." The old man pointed the sword at him. "If you use this, your mind will be devoured by bloodlust before you even reach the enemy." The master smith had instructed him to channel his fierce intent, but keep it sealed within. There was no perfect method. Only through hard work could he achieve. In this life, Kang-san had been overwhelmed by that fierce intent, pouring it into the steel. As the metal was purified by the hammer blows, Kang-san's mind was mysteriously cleared by a skill, the Guardian's Will, which activated unexpectedly. The effect of the madness was lifted and he returned to his senses. However, as the madness left his body, the energy that kept him hammering also vanished. The young man lost his strength and staggered, his eyes closing. Master Yu rushed forward, catching Kang-san before he hit the ground. Kang-san forced himself to stay awake and showed him the sword. "I made it. Could you look at it?" Master Yu Jung-young observed the weapon on the table. It had become a rank E longsword with a simple +6 attack power stat. However, alongside it was a special effect, bleeding, leaving the master blacksmith utterly stunned. That same night, at a restaurant in the neighborhood, a small gathering took place. The old large-eared blacksmith held his tongs with excitement. "What a surprise! Our stingy boss actually brought us out for meat." He revealed that he had been on his way home, but had no choice but to turn back. Sitting at the table, Kang-san imagined that Chief Yu still hadn't let go of his anger. The man seemed even more upset than before. Yu Jung-young frowned deeply. He knew that normally, an item's rank was determined by the mana within a mana stone, but Kang-san had strengthened an item without using one. Unfortunately, the longsword the boy had made had broken due to its fragility. Thinking that the young man possessed such an ability made Yu Jung-young wonder if he could become a top-tier item creator and revolutionize the entire industry. Wanting to discover the technique Kang-san had used, Yu didn't know how to bring it up, given the irritation he had shown earlier that day. Kang-san, on the other hand, felt the pressure of the remaining 5 days and wondered what he needed to do. Seeing them both immersed in dark thoughts, the large-eared blacksmith slammed the table and shouted, "What is with you two? How dare you think of other things when there's meat in front of you? Stop it and eat!" Hurriedly, Kang-san and Yu Jung-young obeyed and began to eat. Tasting the meat, Kang-san praised it. "It's delicious." However, seeing Master Yu silent, he looked away. After chewing for a moment, Kang-san decided to speak. He called out to Master Yu and, preparing a wrap of meat and lettuce, tremblingly offered it to Yu Jung-young as both an apology and a plea for a favor. The next day, the blacksmith Yu prepared an iron ingot. As Kang-san had requested, he had not yet sharpened the blade. Kang-san took the pre-stretched ingot while the iron was still hot, offering his thanks. Dressed in forge gear, he was ready. Although he couldn't make a sword alone, he imagined that with a master's pre-forged base, he could make it withstand the divine art of darkness. With just a glance, Kang-san noticed that the ingot was simultaneously the same and different from what he had hammered the day before. He activated the first level of the divine art, causing a crimson energy, similar to fire, to erupt around him. The old blacksmith was shocked to see the flames, but Master Yu calmed him. The evil spirit was delighted to see Kang-san. "You came back. As expected, you need my power, right? Yes, we need to end as many people as possible. We need to end those who look down on you." Kang-san felt as if the divine art of the blood demon was taking him over again. He forced himself to remain calm. This was a technique that could be controlled. He struggled to overcome it. Seeing the boy losing control, Master Yu shouted, "Kang-san, focus on the sword." The blacksmith didn't know why, but he was gripped by intense emotions that forced him to instruct. "It's just you and the sword. That's how it must be while you are hammering." Kang-san gave the blacksmith a brief look and turned back to the blade, bringing the hammer down upon it. His mind cleared slightly. He continued to hammer, keeping his dark intent invisible, preventing it from leaking out. Gradually, Kang-san began to realize something. When he restricted the malice and focused entirely on the strike, he felt as if the forge itself was telling him where to hit. In silence, the pair of blacksmiths watched the young man work. Time passed, day turned to night, and the cycle repeated. On the 7th day, Kang-san received a notification. You have overcome the 7th day of difficulty and trial. The promised reward will be delivered. Numerous stats were bestowed upon Kang-san: 37 strength, 45 agility, 21 divine points, along with 12 reflexes, 8 stamina, and 10 willpower. The special skills, crafting proficiency, and material analysis were also created. Falling to his knees, Kang-san panted heavily. He had hammered for so long that he had expected his skills to improve. Master Yu approached, wanting to observe the finished work. It was a sharp, sturdy longsword with 19 attack power and the special effect, bleeding. The large-eared blacksmith approached, stunned. What's happening? He strengthened an item just by hammering without using a mana stone. Is that even possible? Kang-san, still gasping for air, was confused by the blacksmith's words. Master Yu remained silent, deep in thought. Suddenly, Kang-san grabbed the master's wrist. The smith was confused until the boy looked away, smiled slightly, and used a skill, transmission. A glow appeared between them. The skill sharing occurred through that energy, leading the master blacksmith to enlightenment. A thought crossed Yu's mind. Whether Kang-san's miraculous ability was a divine trick or not, if a blacksmith were to be chosen by the heavens, he had believed it should have been him. He had hammered every day before the flames, forging calluses on his hands over many years. Realizing his arrogance made him feel like a pathetic person. At the same time, at a training ground, a massive stone monster attacked a mage, the last one standing on the team. The mage was terrified, for this was a monster capable of necromancy. He knew something was wrong. One of the team members, a blonde young man, tried to get up but couldn't. Looking to his side, he realized his hand was lying far from his body. The young man's screams reached the mage. You said it was just a test! What kind of test goes this far? From a high platform, people watched. The pair was rescued and taken to the testing center. The young man who had been dropped into the situation shouted as they tried to heal him. Is this even allowed? Can the director of the emergency center really do this? I'll expose everything to the public. Why bring an outsider into your family feud? As the youth was rushed out, the young mage knelt before a man, the director of the training center. On his knees, he begged his father. However, the man with crossed arms refused to listen, delivering his verdict. You failed. As promised, never speak of wanting to become a hunter again. The youth gritted his teeth, soaked in sweat. He implored, just once more. Please, give me one more chance. The father rebuked him. You must think being a hunter is easy. Will you ask for a second chance in a real fight too? The son lowered his head, swearing, if I fail this test again, I won't make any more excuses. I'll do as you say, but let me choose my own team for this raid. Seeing his son blame his teammates, the man sneered, how pathetic! With that mindset, you will always fail. But fine, one last chance. Assemble your team in 3 days. The man then walked toward a facility employee and instructed, increase the difficulty. Even if I have to bring back my son's corpse, I won't allow him to become a hunter. Raise the level so that not even rank A hunters can clear it. Kang-san wanted to share the skill that perfectly suited the blacksmith with Master Yu. Master Yu tried to refuse it. I can't take something you earned with such great difficulty. However, Kang-san credited Master Yu with helping him manage the new skill, as he had even assisted in preparing the initial part of the ingot. He reassured him, don't worry, it won't disappear from me just because I transmitted it to you. Master Yu fell silent, deciding whether to accept it or not. It was then that his blacksmith friend snorted slightly and suggested a solution. How about a contract? That way, no one feels uncomfortable. A dark being emerged, creating the contract to be signed. It contained clauses on how Master Yu would use the skill and what Kang-san would receive in return. With the contract in hand, the being questioned, the contents of the contract are guaranteed by the magic of the scroll's creator, Roman Bernard. Both contractors wrote this with care, correct? Both Kang-san and Master Yu nodded. Thus, the skeleton also signed the contract, sealing the agreement between the two, for which it would serve as the judge. Master Yu Jung-young held the contract, thanking Kang-san and vowing to refine and polish the technique so that he would continue to shine. In response, Kang-san wished the blacksmith great success. Outside the smithy, hurried footsteps approached. Kang-san looked back as a few people appeared looking for him. A man and a woman were panting heavily after running. They were there looking for him at Yan Wubin's request. Remembering Wubin, the protagonist checked his phone and realized he had numerous missed calls. On the messaging app, Wubin's crying and desperation were clear to see. The woman looking for Kang-san reached out, asking if he could come with them. The group boarded a taxi and quickly arrived at the meeting place. Kang-san was surprised to find they had reached the Hunter Emergency Management Center. Running toward the building, Kang-san asked where Wubin was. The protagonist quickly reached the third floor where Woo-bin was located and was surprised to see familiar faces. Both Hanbyul and Chanwoo were also present. Confused, Kang-san asked what they were doing there, questioning if there had been an emergency or if Woo-bin had been injured. Hanbyul quickly reassured him, although relieved Kang-san was still confused. While the meeting was taking place, Yan Woo-bin approached excitedly, having finally managed to contact Kang-san. Curious, Kang-san looked at the man behind Woo-bin. It was then that he recognized him. That was Yan Gyu-seong, the director of the Hunter Emergency Center. The protagonist wondered why such a person was following Woo-bin. Yan Gyu-seong looked around, noting that he hadn't seen Hanbyul for a while. Hanbyul greeted the director warily. Yan Gyu-seong also recognized Executive Director Jung's youngest son, Jung Chan-woo. Finally, he looked at Kang-san. Yan Gyu-seong didn't speak aloud, but he knew he was just a rank F, recently promoted to rank E, who served as a meat shield. Woo-bin was extremely excited to see the group. I was worried about what would happen if even one of you was missing. Kang-san was the first to question why Woo-bin had called them. Hearing the question, Hanbyul asked if he hadn't heard anything yet. Observing the group, Yan Gyu-seong interrupted them, questioning his son. So this is the team you gathered? The test will be interesting in a different way. Young Chan-woo hid his irritation, wondering what the old man meant. Hearing mention of a test, Kang-san became apprehensive. While putting on his combat gear, Kang-san heard about the identity of Woo-bin's father and that he was against the young man becoming a hunter. Knowing this, Kang-san asked to watch the video of the first test to check the difficulty and create strategies. He also instructed Yeon Woo-bin to describe how the last situation went. Yan Woo-bin revealed that the terrain had bushes and rocky hills. The monsters in the area were goblins and hobgoblins. The team had consisted of Woo-bin, a rank D mage, a rank B tank, a rank E sub-tank, a rank E damage-dealing rogue, and finally, a rank D warrior. With staff in hand, Woo-bin had used an electric shock, immobilizing the goblins. This time, Yan Woo-bin was confident he could do it. With the elemental blessing, a rain of lightning fell upon the enemies, dealing damage over a large area. The warrior, while fighting the goblins, was surprised by Woo-bin, as he initially thought he was just another rich young master. This made him suspicious of why Woo-bin couldn't pass the tests. Since the group's strategy was focused more on defense than offense, they had solid stability for Woo-bin to use his spells. However, 10 minutes later, a large monster appeared. An army of trolls commanded by hobgoblins filled the battlefield, causing the tanks to be defeated without any hope. The group tried to retreat, but the trolls wouldn't let them escape. The test's difficulty level had been abnormally increased. Furthermore, the hobgoblin shaman used magic to strengthen the trolls, bringing them back to life before they perished, ensuring their numbers never decreased. Upon hearing the whole story, the group felt discouraged. Yan Woo-bin was desperate and pleaded for help. I really want to become a hunter. I can finally use magic now, but I didn't want to give up just because I can't pass the test. Faced with the plea for help, Kang-san lowered his head in silence. Woo-bin had no deficiency in stats. Not only was his magic powerful, but he also encouraged his teammates. Kang-san didn't see him being crushed by trauma as in the past. Losing a mage like Woo-bin would be a loss for the world. From the floor above, Yan Gyu-seong watched the young people talk and discuss strategy, but his goal had not changed. Kang-san took leadership of the group. I'll go in front and handle the monster's aggro. Chan-woo, focus on protecting the damage dealers. No matter what happens, do not intervene in what happens on the front line. Having been instructed, young Chan-woo nodded. Kang-san set Woo-bin to deal massive damage and Hanbyul to provide secondary support in case any attack got past him and Chan-woo. Remembering how they survived even the anthill, Kang-san instructed them not to be afraid. Let's get through this with confidence and become hunters together. As soon as they entered the testing grounds, the goblins lunged at Kang-san's group. The protagonist stayed at the front, blocking the monster's path. Activating Guardian's Will, he raised his shield, temporarily increasing his defense and health regeneration by 30% for each nearby enemy. By lifting the shield, Kang-san blocked half a dozen goblins that leaped at him after being provoked. Hanbyul readied one of her arrows, while Chan-woo raised his axe near him and Woo-bin, who was conjuring a spell. Kang-san held the front line, using all his strength to keep the goblins at bay. Arrows soon whistled over Kang-san's shield, eliminating the goblins attacking him. With so many goblins appearing, Young Chan-woo wanted to help. The strategy was working, but real combat was always different. Just as Jung Chan-woo was about to intervene, Kang-san shouted, "Follow the plan!" Alone, Kang-san pushed the goblins back. knocking them down one by one. With sheer force, the protagonist managed to fight the goblins without being overwhelmed. At the same time, an incantation was being chanted by Yan Wubin. As soon as he finished, power exploded from his body, and he shouted, "Fire Spear!" The flaming attack fell upon the goblins, incinerating the monsters. From the hunter headquarters, Wubin's father, Yan Guseong, watched the test unfold. Kang-san managed to move through the fire, helping to take down the monsters he was blocking. Kang-san knew the next monsters to appear would be the trolls. However, they were not yet approaching. Realizing that Guardian's will was not activating because he didn't sense monsters nearby, Kang-san understood something was wrong. The protagonist suddenly looked up as a large shadow loomed over them. He turned quickly, shouting, "Watch out!" A large boulder flew over him, heading toward the rear. Jumping into the air, Young Chan-woo destroyed the rock with an axe strike. Upon returning to the ground, he joined Woo-bin after saving him. Everyone realized the situation had changed. Flying rocks were not in the video they had seen. Chan-woo acknowledged it would have been terrible if Kang-san hadn't noticed the danger. Young Chan-woo took on the role of secondary tanker and instructed Woo-bin, "From now on, stay behind me no matter what. If the magic is interrupted by those flying rocks, it's over." Confident, Woo-bin nodded. Finally, Guardian's will activated again. Defense and health regeneration increased proportionally to the number of enemies near Kang-san. Soon, the trolls began to close in, and the defense and regeneration points rose steadily. Johan Biol concentrated energy into her bow, pulling back a fortified arrow. The air around her turned ethereal during the attack preparation. The trolls opened their massive mouths, baring crude teeth and letting out grunts. Johan Biol faced the monsters with focus, aiming clearly. The fired arrow howled as it advanced, piercing one of the trolls and sending it falling backward. Many other monsters, however, were still standing, advancing toward the group. Setting his shield aside, Kang-san brandished his sword to attack the trolls. A cut was made on one of the monsters, but unexpectedly, the wound closed in the blink of an eye. Kang-san retreated hastily upon witnessing the unexpected event. Thanks to this, the monsters managed to press him, putting him in serious trouble. Forced to retreat, Kang-san figured they would need to take down the trolls in a single strike. However, this would be difficult due to their armor. They would either have to attack with Hanbyol's concentrated fire or Woo-bin's magic. Seeing that goblins had emerged again, Kang-san thought of how he could use this to his advantage, increasing his attack power through them. Kang-san attacked a group of goblins but was quickly surrounded, with other monsters attacking from the rear. At the same time, one of the trolls managed to get close and raised an iron mace toward him. The attack fell heavily, but it was the troll who trembled. Before the iron mace, Kang-san raised his shield and sword, activating the blade's bleeding effect. The shield and sword reflected the troll's attack, allowing Kang-san to strike it bloodily with the first movement of the dark sword technique, ensuring the creature would never move its arm again. Upon returning to his feet, Kang-san exhaled a dark aura. The crimson aura was present on the sword, overflowing, a force he was trying to control. "Don't try to go crazy now. Obey me." Struggling to dominate the sword, Kang-san shouted to the team, "Switch to Plan B, I'm going to clear the path." In the main room, Yeon Gyu-seong watched the battle on a large screen. Quite curious, he questioned his assistant. "Didn't they say he was rank E?" Checking the information, she agreed. "He is definitely rank E." Kang-san ignored any rank and charged forward, carrying his shield and sword. In the sky, a fireball appeared and fell upon the monsters, revealing Woo-bin's work. In the rear, Woo-bin, who had launched the massive fireball, was protected by Jung Chan-woo, who growled irritably, "When are these damn rocks going to stop falling from the sky?" As he fought the trolls, the scent of battle began to stimulate Kang-san's brain. With every monster defeated, the wild nature of the blood ghost chi was awakened. Kang-san ignored every warning, continuing to attack. He took down each of the trolls, but saw the stones continue to fly through the sky. It was as he advanced further that he saw a hooded mage behind a group of trolls, the one responsible for launching the stones at them. Kang-san immediately recognized the hooded monster as the boss commanding the monsters on the battlefield. Giant boulders were hurled at the group, while goblins joined the trolls in the assault. Kang-san would perform his duty, take every hit and clear a path for the damage dealers. He sprinted through the trolls and goblins, brandishing his sword with a crimson glint in his eyes. The thirst-filled gaze Kang-san carried made his strikes even more forceful. When several enemies blocked his path, a massive lightning bolt struck them, immobilizing them. The chain of lightning rendered them helpless. In the rear, Woo-bin panted after timing the magic perfectly. Kang-san seized the opportunity to alert the group. "There's a hobgoblin among the goblin horde. I'll handle the rest, so aim for him." Woo-bin immediately looked toward the cliffs where the hobgoblin was positioned and, from a distance, managed to spot him. He hurriedly called for Hanbyol, who stopped firing arrows to assist him. From inside his shirt, Wubin pulled out a small note, spells written down to reduce casting time. Placing the seal on the tip of his staff, Wubin activated Lightning Spear, which darkened the sky as it formed. Hanbiol understood his intent and pulled back another arrow. The lightning conjured by Wubin took shape around the arrow Hanbiol was drawing. The bow was fortified by the bolts, being pulled to its full wingspan. With power concentrated in the arrow, Hanbiol aimed at the cliffs, focusing on the figure hiding there. The arrow was released, creating a vacuum in the air as it was accompanied by the light of the lightning bolts. The attack, which turned day into night, crossed the battlefield, traveling toward the rear of the monster army. The blow pierced through every goblin and troll, protecting the hobgoblin mage, advancing directly toward the monster leader. The hobgoblin did not stand still. Without a hint of fear, he began to move. His staff was swung, creating bones that erupted from the dirt floor. A shield of bones formed in front of the hobgoblin, receiving the lightning arrow. Behind the shield, the monster smirked, relishing the human's wasted opportunity. Johan Bjol gritted her teeth, shocked to see the attack blocked. Wubin maintained the same irritated expression as that had been his trump card. The hobgoblin dissipated the shield and remained standing, undefeated by the attack. At that instant, Kang San received a notification. The 8th trial has been assigned. The hobgoblin has transcended into a rank C monster. From now on, the hobgoblin will express a powerful, threatening intent against humans. A magic circle appeared in the sky and on the ground, above and below the hobgoblin, turning the world into a somber place illuminated only by dark lightning. The mission was assigned to Kang San. You must escape the other world without any casualties. If you fail, all rewards will be confiscated. The empowered hobgoblin roared with great power. Gritting his teeth, he acquired the ability to speak, "Humans, I will end you all!" While defending against the trolls, Kang San caught sight of what he had already expected. He knew he wouldn't face the situation peacefully. The hobgoblin gave no time for anyone to think and conjured Shadow Spear, a sharp energy that crossed the battlefield. Wubin was the first to recognize the dark magic, a third circle magic. The powerful spell traveled toward them. Kang San was too busy dealing with the trolls. Goblins surrounded him whenever he spent time facing a troll. At this point, cracks had already begun to appear in the shield Kang San held. Without hesitation, and using the Iron Body skill, Kang San jumped in front of the Shadow Spear, blocking the attack. However, due to the impact, he was thrown back, bouncing several times on the ground until he managed to stop by thrusting his sword into the soil. With the monster in sight, Kang San used Healing Aura to regenerate part of his health. When another troll approached, Kang San shouted, "Let's go to Plan C! Fall back!" The group had planned 3 strategies beforehand: a standard plan, a plan for advancing through enemies, and a plan for retreating to the cliffs. Kang San had hoped not to resort to Plan C, but there was no other way to survive. The hobgoblin showed no fatigue and raised his staff once more to conjure the Shadow Spear. The preparation for the attack shocked the entire group again. The magic traveled toward the rear, forcing Kang San to sprint to block it. The protagonist placed the shield in front of his body and used all his strength not to be thrown back. Gritting his teeth, he persisted, giving his absolute best. In the observation area, Yeonggu Seong's assistant acknowledged how well Kang San was doing, but felt the tanker was reaching his limit. If the attacks concentrate even more on that person named Kang San, it's only a matter of time until he collapses. Curious, Yeonggu Seong asked how much time had passed since the start of the test. Checking the notes, the assistant revealed that an hour had already passed. Yeonggu Seong frowned and pressed his lips together, showing a tense expression. Inside the test, Young Chan-woo continued to protect Woo Bin so he could use his magic. Han Byul made use of her bow and arrows, while Kang San remained on the front line. Watching the battle, Yeonggu Seong gripped the second-floor railing tightly. In the past, he had faced despair upon seeing a group of hunters slaughtered. Among the bodies, wet by the tears Yeonggu Seong shed, was his wife, to whom he desperately tried to apologize. At that moment, he swore he would protect the only thing that still linked them: a young man hospitalized who had barely managed to survive, Woo Bin. Trolls attempting to approach Kang San were sliced in two by his sword strikes. The monsters fell to the ground, only for Kang San to finish them off. Bringing down yet another of the countless trolls, Kang San found himself attacked by 2 goblins. One of them raised a spear in an upward thrust toward the hunter's back. However, before it could hit Kang San, an attack of light struck the creature. Kang San had been saved from the first goblin, but in addition to those with spears, there were still some with bows and arrows. He wasn't agile enough, and one of the arrows hit him in the back, outside the area protected by his armor. Seeing one of the humans wounded, the hobgoblin grew excited. Another shadow spear was conjured, and the energy-launching magic was released even faster. Kang San noticed the attack and lunged lunged awkwardly in front of it, placing his shield between the magic and himself. Due to his lack of proper posture, Kang San was slammed into the ground by the impact, falling into a corner of the battlefield. The ground was stained red as the protagonist coughed. He gritted his teeth, swallowed the pain, and tried to use his sword to pull himself. Kang San already knew that more than an hour had passed. Not only he, but everyone's stamina was depleted. At this rate, they wouldn't be able to pass the test. As Kang San was still getting up, more trolls and goblins marched toward him. Without him understanding what it was about, a voice emerged announcing, "Burning time has been applied." An unexpected force took hold of Kang San's body, allowing him to rise and charge at the monsters. He didn't know what that voice meant, but he took advantage of the strength he had received. After attacking, Kang San returned to defensive mode, using his shield for protection. However, the attacks remained harsh, forcing him to retreat. After moving away from the trolls, Kang San faced them with a sharp gaze. Kang San's mental power stat increased by 1 point thanks to the burning time. The stamina stat obtained the same effect. Feeling the power overflowing in his body, Kang San was jaw-dropped. He realized it wasn't his imagination. The stats had increased momentarily. This meant it was a great opportunity to strengthen them. While the rest of the group continued to struggle despite their exhaustion, Kang San took advantage of the gift he had received to charge at the trolls. All his life, he had lived without rewards, and now that he was finally receiving them, he would devour each one like a shark. With his shield pushed upward, Kang San deflected a hammer attack from a troll. His sword took a low angle, striking the Achilles heel and making the monster stumble. As he moved with dexterity around the enemies, Kang San's skill stat increased by 1 point, which would last as long as burning time was active. Becoming stronger with every combat, Kang San continued to hunt the monsters. Facing another troll wielding a hammer, Kang San executed the first form of the dark sword technique, launching a diagonal cut against the enemy. By slicing the troll, Kang San received another point of mental power. Behind the defeated monster, a group of goblins emerged. Panting heavily, Kang San gained another point of resistance for the battle. Despite the fatigue, a smile appeared on his face. He was deeply grateful for that opportunity. While Kang San lunged at the monsters to continue accumulating combat points, Wubin threw up his entire lunch from that day. After using magic for over an hour, no mana remained in his inner circles. Extremely exhausted, he trembled from the lack of energy. Many monsters still remained standing. Yongchan Wu, fighting with his axe, saw Wubin fall to his knees, covering his mouth. He quickly asked what had happened, and weakly, Wubin revealed, "I have mana exhaustion. Any further sacrifice will be pointless. Before the situation becomes irreversible, it's better to give." With a weary look, Wubin's eyes began to close. He was grateful to have so many people by his side, but he didn't want to force any of them to sacrifice themselves. Firmly, Yongchan Wu refused to give up. "Our leader hasn't given up yet." As he said, Kang San remained committed to the front line of the battle. Even from a distance, Wubin could see that he was still pushing himself, despite being equally exhausted. Yongchan Wu ordered Wubin to take a mana potion and enter meditation. "We need to resolve this situation." Wubin explained that to recover, he would need at least 3 minutes. During that time, he could do nothing. Yongchan Wu already knew this, and quickly returned to protecting him from the stones. Wubin was stunned to see him working so hard. Holding the axe, Yongchan Wu promised, "Unless I fall, the monsters won't be able to touch even a single hair on your head." Tears filled Yan Wubin's eyes. He took a vial with a golden liquid and quickly drank it. Then he sat in a lotus position, eyes closed, to meditate. In the observation area, Yang Guxiang watched his son and gnashed his teeth furiously, seeing him meditate in the middle of combat. If he received any external interference in that state, his life would be in danger. Angry, he exclaimed, "Is he crazy?" Immediately, the assistant asked if they should send guards to ensure Wubin's safety. In Yan Guxiang's eyes, the situation showed no sign of improvement. Even if they eliminated the hobgoblin, just dealing with common monsters had exhausted nearly everyone's mana. The other group members were also drained of stamina. Yan Guxiang didn't know what to do. If he stopped the test, Wubin would win the bet they had made. Realizing how worried the boss was, the assistant left immediately to call the research team. Yan Guxiang knew he couldn't break his son's stubbornness, as he wished to live as a hunter until the end. Decided to maintain the bet, Yan Guxiang ordered the assistant to leave the situation as it was. He wanted his son to learn how to respond to uncontrollable variables through that experience. Thus, he continued just watching, trying to understand what kind of person his son was, as well as the teammates he had decided to trust. The massive teeth of a troll snapped at Kang San. Counter-attacking with his shield, the protagonist shoved it back and distanced himself, retreating to regroup. As he caught his breath, he gnashed his teeth. Kang San was not about to give up. He swore he wouldn't. He charged once more against the monster, which stood several times his size. When the troll swung its hammer and missed, Kang-san spotted an opening to leap toward it. With agile movements, he spun his body and his sword, severing the monster's head from its neck. The troll joined many others that had perished under the effect of the crimson dark chi Kang-san had activated. Thanks to the skill, his attack power had temporarily increased by 40%. The veins in Kang-san's body bulged, and a crimson aura coiled around the blade he carried. His eyes turned red once more, dominated by an extreme power. In a single dash, he swung his sword countless times, passing through a group of goblins who were eliminated before they could even see the glint of the blade. Whether they were goblins or trolls, every monster in his path was cut down. Sharp wounds spread across the monsters' bodies. Even staggering, Kang-san continued to advance, attacking enemies who actually recoiled in fear at his approach. From his observation post, Yeon Gu-seong watched Kang-san's performance in awe. He saw him blocking the monsters alone on the front line. It was because of him that all the other members could trust their own roles. In the field, Kang-san was like a seawall, holding back the waves. After dealing with the lesser horde, Kang-san finally faced the hobgoblin. The pressure on Jung Chan-woo was eased as the surrounding monsters were cleared, but as the sky began to brighten, a meteor flew toward Kang-san without him noticing. The attack exploded near the protagonist, creating a fireball that hit him with a massive shockwave. Even Yeon Gu-seong felt a surge of anxiety watching the scene. Kang-san stood firm against the damage caused by the flames engulfing him. Gritting his teeth, he roared with fury, activating Guardian's will once again. All of Kang-san's health points were restored, and his defense was temporarily doubled. The abnormal effect of madness was removed, clearing his mind so he could act with precision. Kang-san leaned on his sword and panted heavily. Observing from above, Yeon Gu-seong could see that the hobgoblin had shifted its focus entirely to Kang-san. The monster realized that to destroy the team, it had to eliminate the tanker first, rather than the mage. Jo Han-byul and Jung Chan-woo were shocked to see the next wave. A dozen flaming meteors appeared in the sky, all falling toward Kang-san. He had fallen to his knees, and countless trolls were charging his position. Jo Han-byul knew she had to act. She sprinted toward Kang-san while shouting for Chan-woo to guard Woo-bin. With confidence, Chan-woo yelled back, "Don't worry about us!" Looking back, Chan-woo saw that Woo-bin was still in deep meditation, ignoring his surroundings entirely. As he continued to strike down goblins approaching the mage, Chan-woo pleaded internally for Woo-bin to wake up. Kang-san lifted his head just in time to see the shadow of a troll attacking. Dodging the hammer strike, the protagonist moved just as the first meteor crashed down. The attack hit an orc while Kang-san leaped away. As he hit the ground, goblins and trolls pounced on him, but they were intercepted by arrows that saved him. Jo Han-byul was the one responsible. She ran to Kang-san and stood in front of him, raising her bow to protect him. Kang-san's body seemed to refuse his commands, even though his stamina should have recovered slightly. Meanwhile, Woo-bin was immersed in a sea of thoughts, maintaining focus on the stable flow of mana within. In his meditative state, he heard a sound. He knew it was Chan-woo who had promised to protect him. He could imagine Kang-san at the front, blocking the majority, and Han-byul controlling the rest. It was thanks to those three that Woo-bin knew he was safe. Woo-bin wanted to be like them, someone who steps forward without hesitation for what they wish to protect. These thoughts triggered an old memory of crying in his mother's arms. His teammates were risking everything for him, just like his mother had given her life to keep him safe from monsters. Kang-san, still struggling to move, noticed that the monsters had suddenly stopped. As he wondered why they had ceased their attack, he saw them trembling in fear. Feeling an intense heat, Kang-san looked back and saw a massive blaze of fire, an aura of flames overflowing from Woo-bin. Woo-bin opened his eyes slowly and suddenly widened them, activating the evolved magic eyes skill. A massive fire salamander was created from the flames erupting from Woo-bin's body. Upon seeing the fire spirit, the group was astonished. The salamander was even larger than before. With every step the salamander took, fire spread beneath its feet. The trolls didn't even have time to flee, as the flames it released swallowed them whole. As the salamander advanced, the trolls, frozen in fear, received the fire of defeat. The hobgoblin, hiding in the back line, saw the monsters that protected and obeyed him perish one after another. Furious, he cursed, "This is impossible." Once more he conjured a shadow spear, preparing to confront the human who challenged him in magic. However, Jo Han-byul was ready and fired an arrow at the hobgoblin mage. The monster, caught in the middle of casting the spell, could neither dodge nor block the attack and fell to his knees as he was hit. Kang-san took advantage of the moment the hobgoblin's guard was down to charge. Brandishing his sword, he eliminated the boss of the hunter test. Kang San passed the trial created by Asmoon, and the promised reward would be delivered to him. When everyone left the testing grounds, Woo Bin reunited with his father. The two stared at each other in silence until Yeong Seong spoke the first words. "I am grateful to hunters. Without them, the world would be a more dangerous place, and many would experience losing their families just like us." Woo Bin was surprised by his father and listened intently. Yeong Seong revealed his reason for establishing the Hunter Emergency Center to help them. However, he didn't want his own family to become hunters. This was a selfish desire he held as a doctor. Woo Bin closed his eyes and confronted his father tentatively. "I understand your feelings, but I also passed the test." Yeong Seong replied with a simple sentence. "I give my permission." Woo Bin was shocked and asked his father to repeat it. Yeong Seong gave his son permission to become a hunter, though he warned there would be conditions. In a hospital room, Kang San was receiving an IV and sat up in bed excitedly upon seeing that all his stats had increased. Now, they were comparable to those of a rank D. Kang San credited the change to the burning time system. He still didn't know exactly what it was, so he set the matter aside and moved on to check his stats and rewards. Kang San obtained a 2-star skill called Mannequin. It summoned a clone that possessed 50% of his stats and skills. The mannequin would remain in any designated position, but would disappear when exhausted. The number of mannequins could be increased as his mental power rose proportionally. The mannequin summoned by Kang San slumped to the floor due to his low stamina at that moment. Moving on to the next skill, Pain Sharing, Kang San could absorb part of the damage received by a target, but the absorbed damage would be 50% greater. Despite suffering more damage, this would be a good skill for tanks. However, thinking about how he would use these skills, Kang San could only imagine various terrible scenarios in his future. While Kang San analyzed the skills, someone knocked on the room door. Yeong Seong, Woo Bin's father. The protagonist was surprised to see him. Both Woo Bin's father and the other team members were present. Yeong Seong lowered his head, apologizing for the difficulty of the test. I wanted to stop him at all costs." Aware that he had done something wrong, Yeong Seong addressed Kang San, as well as Jung Chan Woo and Han Byul. He bowed 90 degrees, pleading with the three, "Please, take care of Woo Bin." Yeong Seong had imposed 2 conditions on his son. The first was that he trained to become a hunter receiving his help. The second requirement was that, in every raid he participated in, Kang San must be with him. In Yeong Seong's eyes, only Kang San would be capable of ensuring his son's safety. Now he bowed before the hunter, making this request. The protagonist didn't know how to react at first, but forcing himself to stand, he returned the greeting by bowing. "I understand. Thank you for allowing this." Time passed, and soon Kang San's team entered another gate. In a place where the earth was destroyed, the group advanced to attack lizardmen with ease. Jo Han Byul and Jung Chan Woo acted together, controlling one side of the battle. Before them, countless lizards had already been eliminated by their teamwork. It wasn't long before they received the reward for defeating the Lizardman outpost. Woo Bin and his fire magic were the stars of the next adventure. Returning to the association, they received the reward for successfully completing the Hobgoblin Laboratory Gate. In close combat, Kang San stood out against the orcs and their massive axes. Once again on their record, they received the stamp of another achievement. Not long after, an idea emerged that surprised Jung Chan Woo, going to the Ant Nest, a rank C dungeon. Since Woo Bin was at rank D, Kang San believed they needed to face a rank C dungeon to gain achievements. Furthermore, once Woo Bin met the conditions by conquering a dungeon of that level, they would be qualified to challenge the group promotion test. Thinking of the ant nest, bad memories surfaced in Woo Bin's mind. Seeing the group's negative expressions, Kang San acknowledged they had gone through a hard time last time. That was why he wanted to overcome that challenge again, so the group's skills would be fully recognized. The group joined hands and celebrated the decision to rise to rank C. In a large corporation on one of the highest floors, a man on the phone rejected the idea he heard from the other end. "You want to go to the ant nest? What are you talking about? No, Chan Woo. How do you expect to complete that dungeon with a group where almost everyone is rank E? Don't say ridiculous things." Finishing the call, the man addressed a woman in the shadows. "I managed to stop him somehow. Don't worry, team leader." Irritated, the woman with red hair, similar to Jung Chan Woo's, sighed, "He's causing trouble again." In the center of the spider's den, countless tunnels could be seen all around. Upon arrival, Kang San's group looked around, waiting for the monsters to emerge. The protagonist crouched down, burning a talisman that released a large amount of smoke. Kang San did this so that the ants would be unable to resist and would show themselves. Amidst the smoke entering the tunnels, hissing sounds began to be heard, accompanied by footsteps. The entire anthill suddenly shook violently. This was a sign that the monsters were approaching, which put the entire group on high alert. Ants ran quickly, heading toward the light. The ants emerged from their tunnels and encountered the group, which was already prepared and waiting for them. Wu Bin was the first to use magic, conjuring a wave of fire that poured over the ants coming from his direction. While many ants were turned into crunchy snacks, those that emerged immediately after became confused. Kang San took advantage of the confusion to attack, destroying the insect monsters. Han Biol did not stay idle either. The arrows he fired pierced through the ants' carapaces, eliminating them. On the other side, Young Chan Woo found himself free to swing his two-handed axe. Young Chan Woo recognized the team's growth, and the possibility of being promoted by conquering the ant nest was imminent. He believed that rising in rank was not an impossible goal. However, a certain person thought the opposite. A day before, in the parking lot of Young Chan Woo's house, a woman, his sister, confronted him, questioning if he truly thought he could conquer the group promotion challenge of the ant nest with a disorganized team. Young Chan Woo's sister was Young Hye-mi, the leader of the Cheonsang team. Young Hye-mi raged at her brother. "Why are you acting on your own without coming to work? You have no talent. If you reached rank E with the company's support, shouldn't you be dedicating yourself to training?" Young Chan Woo gritted his teeth irritably upon hearing his sister. He tried to convince her, but Young Hye-mi judged without knowing. Except for a mage, everyone is rank E, and among them is someone who was stuck at rank F for years. It must be fun playing leader with these misfits, isn't it? Young Chan Woo's ears were ringing after hearing so many complaints. The sister held his hand and, with regret, tried to convince him, saying she cared about him and reminding him how difficult it had been for the family. Young Hye-mi recalled that she had promised to make him the best hunter and pleaded for him to return to the company. "Everyone is waiting for you." Young Chan Woo swallowed hard upon hearing his sister's request. Recognizing her concern, he pulled his arm back and declared, "I've already found someone I want to follow. He is someone who makes me believe I can improve. That is how I feel. I am sure of." Young Hye-mi looked at her own hands, still surprised to see that her brother had managed to break free from her grip. She remained silent until she decided, "Very well, then you must pass the group promotion test of the ant nest. If you don't succeed, I will tie your arms and legs and bring you to our team." The bet made with his sister caused Young Chan Woo to fight even more bravely. Watching Kang San's battles, he had learned something. There were no movements without a reason when it came to combat. Kang San always seemed to choose the option that would make the raid even 1% easier to conquer. Whether it was where to fight, where to dodge or retreat, or where to fight without interfering in the teammates' combat, Kang San seemed to understand it all, demonstrating this in his fight against the ants, moving while attacking and clearing the way for allies to attack, like Han Biol, who needed a wide view to fire his arrows. It was thanks to Kang San that the teammates' movements also became more efficient. Young Chan Woo realized that rank didn't matter. They would be able to complete the group promotion test with that team and would definitely be recognized. Oblivious to Young Chan Woo's thoughts, the protagonist advanced, raising his shield to block the path of a giant ant. Upon immobilizing it, he used his sword to attack, applying the first form of the dark sword technique. The Crimson Demon Chi was activated, temporarily increasing Kang San's attack power by 10%. From him and the sword, a scarlet-red aura overflowed. Seeing that energy, Kang San gritted his teeth, as it was not something he wanted to lose control of. That energy could cause his mind to be devoured by evil intent. He remembered the vision of his past life, the old blacksmith instructing him, "Contain your evil intent. Do not let it leak or be exposed." The teaching of blacksmith Yu Jung-yong also came to his mind. There are only you and the sword. As the veins on Kang San's face became more exposed and swelled, he closed his eyes. With great concentration, he tried to internally control the evil intent. Seeing the aura present on Kang San's body, the ants stopped advancing. The protagonist was trying to control the aura and was immersed in a forced meditation. The ants noticed he was not moving and gained confidence to advance. At that moment, Kang San gripped the sword firmly and danced like a cyclone amidst the giant ants, shredding each of the monsters with the swing of his blade. While fighting, Kang San could see, exactly like when he was hammering at the forge, that the aura seemed to show him the path where he should attack. If he focused on controlling the evil intent, he could use the dark chi without being consumed by it. Understanding how the technique worked, Kang San advanced once more, now with the power properly tamed. However, suddenly, Kang San found himself in a crimson sea, a place where he could not move. He fell to his knees, unable to move forward. He could not understand when an evil intent as vast as an overwhelming sea had emerged. That was not the energy he was trying to repress, but the energy of another being. Heavy footsteps of ants began to emerge, reverberating in the protagonist's ears. It was then that he realized that was the evil intent of the ants. At that moment, the 9th trial was designated. Because of the karma of a malefactor, kills are now restricted. You cannot eliminate any creature until you conquer the lair. If you fail, all previous rewards will be confiscated.